Appeals for the Town of New Canaan. Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order on August 4th at 7:00 p.m. When we call your case, we ask that each presenter come up to the lectern, identify themselves and the property in question, state the request of the board, and identify the hardship and reason for the request. Remember, the hardship cannot be financial in nature. It runs with the land and is peculiar to your property. The board will then ask questions of you, after which you will sit down and we'll give those present a chance to speak. You will then be given an opportunity to answer any questions or sum up your request. We record the meeting, so everyone must speak into the microphone and state their name. The board will then go into business session, discuss and make a decision. There are 5 voting members on the board, and it takes 4 positive votes to be granted a variance. I'm going to start by taking attendance. Cynthia?
Dell present.
Cardin present.
Bastian present.
Carity present.
Alex Snyder present.
Boog present.
The only matter on the agenda tonight, or the only application on the agenda tonight, is the continuation of 995 South Avenue. Does the applicant want to come up to the lectern and make sure that it's on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, could you all speak up a little bit?
Yes, we will.
You have your backs to us.
I've never been told that I've been quiet, so I will do my best to speak up. Just have 1 second to set up, Mr. Chairman.
Ma'am, if you can't hear anything, just ask and I'll repeat it.
Okay, I'll go closer, thank you. You're welcome to sit in those 2 chairs. Oh, that's good.
Oh, that'd be great.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay. May I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Nice to see you all again. For the record, my name's Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen, 20 Church Street in Hartford, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight is Dan Riccio, a principal of the applicant here. With us via Zoom, we also have, which you can't see on the screen right now, we also have Tori Kelleher, our project manager, and then I believe we should also have Justin Giorlando, our consulting professional engineer for this proposed redevelopment. And just for housekeeping purposes, the board should have before it hard copies of our slides here. There are a lot of slides. I promise you the vast majority of them we're going to be going through quickly. We just kind of broke down the various revisions to the site and just to walk the board through the revised plan. So it has been a few months, 3, since we last saw the board in May. So I wanted to just set out a short background on kind of the process. I'm going to hand it over to Dan to give a few opening comments, and then I'll go into the substance together with Tori and Justin as well. Mr. Chairman, I'd respectfully request a chance to be able to have some concluding comments. I defer to the board perhaps after public comment, but I just don't want the public hearing closed before I have a moment to have some final comments. So as the board may remember, we first filed an application for this particular site in October 2024. The request was for 2 variances in connection with the redevelopment of the site, with 2 structures containing 3 residential units, 1 for the minimum 45-foot front setback requirement, as well as 1 for the maximum 2.5 stories in height in the regulations. The public hearing was in November 2025. I was not involved at that time. The board expressed some significant concerns, so we withdrew the application and went back to the drawing board. We consulted with staff. We reviewed the regulations again. We took a closer look at the plans. And in the interim, we also received from staff a certificate of zoning compliance confirming the legal non-conforming use and structures on site as an existing protected 3 family use on site, and then also the location of the structures, which are currently non-conforming, are also protected. We then submitted this application in February. The public hearing opened in May, as I said. We had scaled the plan back from our November plan. We proposed the elimination of the existing height nonconformity on site, and we further reduced the proposed front setback, the existing front setback nonconformity. The trade-off in order to achieve those goals was a modest increase in coverage within the front setback area. Again, the board expressed some concerns, so we went back to the drawing board, revisited the plans, and that's essentially why we're here tonight. But before I get to that, I want to hand it over to Dan to provide some remarks, and then I'll pick up the mantle again.
Okay, good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Dan Riccio, the principal of 995 South Avenue LLC, the owner of 995 South Avenue. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you again here tonight. I hold great respect for this board and all zoning boards and commissions, as I deeply understand the weight of your responsibility to the municipalities that you serve. You must carefully weigh the facts and circumstances, offer informed opinions, and make decisions that serves the best interests of your town. In light of this, I felt it essential to fully grasp the perspectives of everyone involved. To that end, I have thoroughly reviewed all previous meeting minutes and personally studied the provided case law. This preparation has given me, hopefully, a clearer understanding of the board's priorities and concerns. I also recognize that approving this project requires taking a calculated chance on me and my team. I assure you that I do not take this responsibility lightly. As evidenced by the letters of support I've submitted from other municipalities, I view it as my duty to execute every approved project with excellence, ensuring that in hindsight, your decision proves to be the right one for the community. Ultimately, I am committed to building long-lasting relationships in the towns and cities where I work. I am confident that if granted this approval, the outcome here will mirror my successes elsewhere, an overwhelmingly positive result that benefits the community for years to come. Seeing as this is now our second application and third night of public hearing regarding the redevelopment of the site, I'd like to begin briefly by recapping how we arrived at this point and how our proposal has evolved since the beginning. When I first purchased this property over a year ago now, I did so under the belief that this property consisted of 4 units. This was based on the current property field cards, which still show 4 units, and an initial conversation I had with the planning and zoning staff. During my due diligence period before I purchased the property, I met with staff who also believed that our property consisted of 4 pre-existing non-conforming units that could be rebuilt by right. This assessment was also based on the current field cards, which seemed to be standard procedure in most municipalities. In addition, we were told that we would be able to expand our existing footprint as long as it didn't encroach any closer to the front property line than the existing buildings already are. Again, this is a zoning interpretation that we have received in the past in other municipalities. With that perceived confirmation from staff, we proceeded with our standard due diligence items: inspections, underground scanning, surveying, feasibility analysis, and the many other typical steps we take with any new acquisition. In turn, our initial design, which we presented to town staff, was a 4-unit development. However, as we progressed through our pre-construction process, demolition application, and were preparing for demolition, we had asked what needed to be done to ensure we could rebuild these 4 units once we demolished them. Town staff then performed additional research and informed us that we would need a certificate of zoning compliance to accomplish this, and provided us with the application. Through that process and our thorough research, we ultimately came to find that the property could only be confirmed as 3 units. In addition, we were told for the first time that we would need a variance to modify the structures within the front setback of the property. While this was a major setback, we were already committed to this project, so we consulted with a local zoning attorney and town staff, and the consensus was that our proposal seemed reasonable, and it was likely to be well received by the board. I wanted to detail this history for the board's benefit, as this is something that had come up in prior meetings. I wanted to better explain that we did our due diligence on this property, and we've been facing significant setbacks since day one. We did not jump into this site blindly. At our first hearing, however, the board expressed concerns. What we believed to be a modest and thoughtful proposal was perceived as a big ask. Taking their feedback seriously and attempting to come up with a more reasonable proposal, we returned to the drawing board. We eliminated our request for a height variance, eliminated a pre-existing height nonconformity, reduced the existing front setback nonconformity even further, and we cut our increase of building coverage within the front setback in half. We believe these changes were exactly the type of scaled back proposal the board would be looking for at our second hearing. Yet honestly, to our surprise, we were met with seemingly just as much resistance. After making what we saw as drastic improvements to reduce our request, it became clear that our changes still hadn't reached the level the board deemed necessary to warrant an approval. So we went back once more. Today, we present a further scaled back proposal. We are still eliminating the existing height nonconformity and reducing the existing front setback nonconformity on site. And to accomplish this, are now proposing a modest increase of building coverage within the front setback of just 160 square feet. Every other aspect of the plan complies fully with zoning regulations. We're proposing to transform a lot burdened with exceptional difficulties and hardship, including wetlands, steep slopes, lack of stormwater management, a failing septic system, and deteriorating structures. We are proposing to turn it into a thoughtfully designed residential property with new homes, meticulously landscaped grounds, improved driver safety, wetlands enhancements, and a positive addition to the community. All of this in exchange for what I can only describe, seemingly to me anyway, as a reasonable variance request, which complies with the current state of the law on variances in Connecticut. I respectfully submit that this proposal is not only reasonable, it's a meaningful and deserving opportunity to improve this property. I hope you will agree that it is now worthy of your approval and provide us the chance to move forward with a project that benefits the town of New Canaan and its future families. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And Mr. Chairman, and I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name, but I believe some of those comments were in response to concerns we received at the May hearing. Board member, is it Dull? Dull, I apologize. I'm gonna have to relearn everyone's again. So Board member Dull, I believe you had expressed concern, especially with your professional background in real estate, about having done due diligence on this site and making sure that all of the T's had been crossed and the I's had been dotted before we moved forward with the variance. So we wanted to ensure that the board understood that we did our best, and unfortunately there've been a couple of roadblocks, but we're moving forward and hoping that this does the trick. So with that, I'm going to ask Tori, our project manager, to share his screen. Perfect. There we go. Would you go to slide 2, please? Thank you. And again, this is the same PowerPoint that the board has in front of it. So I'm going to start on slide 2. Again, just a brief background. Thanks, Tori. The site is 1.1 acres. It's designated right there on that red pin. It's located at the corner of Talmadge Hill Road and South Avenue, South Avenue, excuse me, located in the 2-acre zone where single-family homes are permitted as of right, and detached ADUs or accessory dwelling units are permitted via special permit approval. And as the board can see, there are residential uses surrounding the site on all sides. Next slide. It is currently improved, and I'll get to why these photos look different in just a second. It's currently improved with 2 structures on site. You're now looking at the site essentially standing on South Avenue, looking roughly west or southwest. There is the structure to the right, or the structure to the north, which is an existing 2-family structure. And then you have the structure to the left or to the south, which is an existing single-family structure. Now, again, the board will recall that the photos the board saw in May looked significantly different. We had expressed to the board concerns with some of the vegetation on site, not only from sight lines, but just the health of the trees. And sure enough, we had a large tree come down and take out a shed on site. So when we went out there with our team, there was an evaluation done of the trees, and there were a lot of trees that were not in good health. They were blocking sight lines. They were leaning over the power lines and leaning over the homes. So it was made with the decision of the team to just kind of clear some of the more precarious trees, especially the ones that were closest to the site. So the trade-off is you now see the structures that are there a little bit more clearly, but that's why it looks so different. Next slide.
Did you talk to inland wetlands about that, or do you not need their permission?
Did not. I believe Mr. Riccio informed, and I'm not speaking for Sarah, but informed Ms. Carey.
Yes, and they reached out specifically to Kathleen, and Kathleen, who's the inland wetlands director, forwarded it to me, so it was all vetted by town.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
So Kathleen saw it.
Yes,
Okay.
and I was going to start with Mr. Chairman that it wouldn't have been necessary given where it was located on the site, but we did confirm with staff anyway. So again, just a summary, this is obviously a rudimentary version of the site plan. 985 is that two-family to the north I mentioned, and 995 is that structure that's slightly angled towards the street to the south. The board may well remember that the property slope, excuse me, I can't say it, steeply slopes, there you go, from east to west, or from South Avenue to the west, dropping about 20 feet in grade to the Stony Brook watercourse that you can see there. And that runs right through the property, roughly parallel to the westerly property line. And of course, given the significant wetlands to the west of that and the small area, we're not building to the west. And some of the wetlands do, of course, are located to the east of the watercourse. Next slide, Tori. So again, we have, I took away the text so you can take a better look at what the site plan was on the prior slide. You have the water course down the middle, the wetlands in that green polka dotted area, and that dotted line that you see, it's a rough rectangle, I'll call it, is that setback line, that 45 setback line from the front, and you can see how significantly the existing structures are within that front setback line and close to the front property line. Next slide. So in consultation with staff, as I mentioned, which, I will say Mr. Riccio and Mr. Kelleher have made a concerted effort to consult with staff as they've been moving forward on these plans. It was explained to us that we would need at least a minimum 25-foot buffer from the edge of the wetlands. And we were told to basically stay away and not touch that. So we've designated that here roughly in that red hatched area. So again, we took the easterly border of that wetlands, pushed it out further to the east by about 25 feet, further restricting the buildable area on site. Next slide. And then beyond that, we got into this conversation a little bit during the May hearing, but we wanted to visually show it on the plan. We lose about another 40 feet for necessary septic upgrades, as well as the retaining walls that are going to be built on site. This is due to the extreme slope. You're going to hear a little bit more about that later from Tori and from our engineer. There have been some comments that the need for these upgrades is a self-created hardship. It's our fault because we're proposing this plan, but any development that would go on the site would require some type of slope stabilization, as well as compliance with the stormwater management regulations and soil erosion and sediment control regulations. So again, we're losing about 40 linear feet from east to west for steep slopes, septic, and drainage. Next slide. So when you take all that,
Andrea,
yes,
I thought at the last meeting that there was discussion about the setback, the septic being closer to the intersection of Talmadge Hill and South Ave. Or was that not the case?
I believe, meaning moving it closer to the intersection?
I thought they said that was one of their considerations. Was that one of the systems was going in back and one was
Yes,
gonna go
Mr.
closer?
Chairman, Mr.
I'm gonna
Chairman,
ask Dan to weigh in.
we have a slide coming up which actually shows in this format drainage, septic, but you're absolutely right. One of the systems is a bit on the corner there, South Avenue Town, but there's other drainage systems and septic systems in that cross area.
Yeah, so we'll be going through that,
And there's
Mr.
also drainage systems in the front.
Yeah, so we'll show that visually in a few slides, Mr. Chairman, but I'm going to ask, I'll ask your patience if I may, because Justin will be going through exactly how constrained we are and where we locate things like septic and stormwater, because a lot of that is governed by codes that we can't obviously violate for public health reasons. So now turning back to the slide that's on the screen, when you eliminate the water course, the wetlands, the 25-foot wetlands buffer, which again was the minimum, plus the 40 feet that we need to use as a result of slopes, septic, and drainage, you are left with essentially the green area as buildable area on site. And of course, we are taking the existing footprint of the building that's within the front setback area. Everything that's to the left of that dotted line is within, is beyond that front setback area. And that roughly equates to only about 9.5% of the buildable area on this lot that we can use to actually construct anything on this site. And yeah, that's has a little bit more numbers there that you can see. About 9.5% of the lot area left to build on. Next slide. Thank you. So given the above, and given, of course, the board's concerns at the May meeting, we went back to the drawing board, as we mentioned. So what we did was we redesigned the single family home, or the newly proposed single family home, which is that structure to the north of the site, that when you compare it to the May plan, reduces overall building coverage, reduces coverage within the front setback, increases the distance from the front property line. Yet again, we pulled it further back from the front property line or the street line, further reducing the existing front setback nonconformity, and reduced building height and massing when compared to the last plan. We also revised, and the board will see this a little bit later, the landscaping plan significantly to provide some additional screening along the westerly portion of the site, or to the left of the screen that you would see here, primarily in response to comments received from the neighbors to the west, the Sandors, I believe, concerns about, for example, I think just visual impacts, car lights coming out of the garage and things like that. So we put a pretty significant landscape buffer there as well. Now, before I hand it over to Tori to walk the board through these changes, I wanted to go over what I'm calling our cheat sheet. And the board will see that on the screen. It's also at slide 11. Lots of numbers here. I know there's lawyers on the board as well. You give numbers to a lawyer, at least this lawyer, and our eyes go a little bit cross-eyed. But the impetus for creating this cheat sheet was at the May hearing, there were a lot of numbers flying around. There were numbers represented by our team. There were numbers represented by members of the public. The board was doing its own calculations. And when we went back and looked at the recording for May, there was some confusion. I will admit I myself miscalculated a couple of numbers because so many were flying around. So what we wanted to do was essentially set the record straight. We created this cheat sheet, if you will, of the numbers that the board seemed the most interested in during the May meeting. And for avoidance of all doubt, we actually went back to our surveyor, provided our surveyor with the existing conditions plan and with the revised site plan, and had him confirm the numbers that the board sees here to ensure that they were correct beyond a doubt. So overall, I'm just going to run through these quickly. Overall, what you'll see at the top of the page, there's going to be the proposed building coverage overall has decreased since the May plan by about 159 square feet when compared to the May plan. So again, we shrank primarily that single family building to the north.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt just to ask you the question or ask her?
Ma'am, we'll let you ask. Why don't they present and then you can ask your questions,
Okay,
and then she can respond.
Because I didn't know what building you were speaking of when you mentioned the square footage there.
We'll make sure everyone has plenty of time to present, and we'll go back and forth as long as it
Okay.
takes tonight. We unfortunately have to close the meeting tonight because of timing, so we'll stay as long as it takes to make sure everyone gets their opportunity, but it'd be the most fluid if they present, then you ask your questions, and then they can respond.
understand.
So just keep like a running tablet of your questions, please. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll keep a running list of questions
Thank
as
you.
well during public comment and do our best to respond.
Thank you.
So again, going back to the cheat sheet, the overall, and I lost my place, but overall proposed building coverage, when compared to the May plan, we shrank that by an additional 159 square feet. Now, building coverage within the front setback area, that was a number the board was particularly interested in May. We confirmed, having, again, asked our surveyor to look at the plans, what we were proposing in May, and this was one of the numbers that I accidentally misrepresented in May, just because I wasn't doing my math correctly, was 333 square feet net building coverage increase within the front setback area. We've now more than halved that. We've scaled that back to 160 square feet. And that's that yellow highlighted line that you see when compared to the May plan. Then you go down to the next box, you have distance to the front property line or the front setback. We are still reducing, as we proposed in May, reduction of the front setback nonconformity as to both buildings. But we were actually able, in redesigning the northerly building or the single family home, we were able to pull that back even a little bit further by an additional almost 2 feet. So we're now pulling the buildings back by 5.3 feet, that's the northerly building, and 6.4 feet, that's the southerly building. The board will also see when we go back to the plan, we're also orienting that southerly building so it's no longer angled to the street. We're now putting it straight, and that's partly how we were able to achieve that reduction in front setback nonconformity when existing compared to existing conditions. And then finally, we had our surveyor and our team as well just confirm the stories of the building on site. There was some debate at the May meeting whether or not the existing northerly building is actually 3 stories and the southerly building is 2.5, and whether what we're proposing is actually 2.5. When you look at the way that the zoning regulations define stories, we were able to confirm that there is an existing nonconformity. The 985 building, the building to the north, is currently 3 stories per the zoning regulations. And certainly my understanding is that Ms. Carey agrees with that assessment, but I won't speak for her. And then the southerly building, the existing single family, which will be a 2-family, is compliant at 2.5 stories. What we are proposing is to eliminate that height nonconformity, and both buildings will now be 2.5 stories as defined by the New Canaan zoning regulations. And again, there was a letter submitted into the record. We just received a copy today from one of the neighbors doing this calculation regarding stories. Without going into the nuts and bolts of it, and if we need to, we certainly can because we have our team on. The lower levels have been designed as cellars, which don't count as stories under the New Canaan zoning regulations. And so that's how we were able to arrive at the 2.5 stories. Just wanted to make that clear.
Ma'am, I just want to make sure, can you hear all this?
Pardon me?
Can you hear what the discussion, or do you want to come up?
It's my ears, not your meeting.
I can be,
So it's not perfect, but it's okay. My husband, I think, feels like he can hear better up there.
Okay, because if you want to move up,
Okay.
I just know, it's going fast.
I can hear well enough, really. But
Okay,
thank you for thinking of me.
okay.
do you want me to speak louder, Mr. Chairman?
Or maybe
I
if you
can
turn it
try.
a little bit, like an angle, maybe. I just want to make sure everyone can hear.
Yeah, you can hear. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Like I said, I've
Okay.
never been told I've been quiet, so.
I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So with that, I just wanted to, again, just general caution to the board, and you'll see a little bit of this as we go through the PowerPoint tonight. Certainly, I'm in no way disputing the neighbor's rights to put in public comment. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just cautioning the board that when there are certain figures about what the stories are, the setbacks are, things like that, respectfully, please review what's on our plan, which has been confirmed by our team, by our surveyor, and reviewed by staff. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tori, who I think, Tori, do you have audio?
Andrea, can we go through this chart
Sure.
just quick while we're here before we move on?
The cheat sheet?
Yeah, page 11.
Yep. I'm going to dig on my calculator.
So, the existing building coverage, according to your survey, is 2,854 feet.
Correct, existing.
And the current coverage is 3,456.
Correct.
This is a 1 acre lot. I mean, it's a about little less than 1 acre in a 2 acre zone.
1.1 acres, yes.
Okay, so slightly over 1 acre in a 2 acre zone. But the 3,456 would comply with the coverage for if it was 2 acres or for if it's the 1.1 acre.
It complies with the total building coverage for the 2 acre residential zone, which is the zone that this is located in.
So it complies for the size of the lot it is. They are not asking for a coverage.
That's what I wanted to confirm.
Correct. So it's not based on what zone you're in, it's based on the size of your lot.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I wanted to confirm because the asterisk here was a little confusing. Okay, and the building coverage within the setback, within the front setback is currently 1,744.
Correct.
And it's gonna go up to 1,904. So the front setback, there'd be an additional 160 square feet.
Just
in-
within the
In the
setback.
front setback.
Correct. Yep, and we reduced that from, when you look back at November, that was 785 increase. We then brought it down to 330. We're now at 160.
And there's, just for the people in attendance, there's no issues with the either side or the back setbacks, just the front setback.
Correct, and that's existing.
The distance to the front property line for the current building at 985 is 18.8 feet. And
Correct,
that's increasing to 24.1.
correct. We're pulling it back from the street line.
And the building at 995 is currently 21.7 feet, and you're pulling that back to 28.1.
Correct,
Currently, because of the way stories are measured, the existing building's non-conforming at 985 is a 3-story structure, and at 995, it's a 2.5 story structure. Both of the new structures will be 2.5 stories.
correct, Mr. Chairman.
And that's based on the calculations from the surveyor.
Correct.
I just wanted to review that, especially because I don't know if everyone here saw this ahead of time, so. Okay,
Can I ask a question related to this?
sure.
Do you have the building height currently and what it will be proposed in the plan in feet?
Should be on the zoning table, board member. Just give me one moment.
No, best if she answers that.
And I'm thinking, I realize the building varies, but within the front setback area, how the height compares.
And
Here, do you want to review?
Tori, do you have that information?
We might be able to pull it
Yeah.
up on the screen, actually.
Yeah. If there's a survey that shows that,
So it's on the zoning, just for the record,
Yep.
and then we'll pull it up on the screen so everyone can see. Our June 30th submission, it's at tab 2, and it's the zoning location survey. And I'm gonna ask Tori. Let me make sure, because he had. Tori, can you hear us?
Maybe he's on mute.
He's looking at us.
He's not muted though, right?
No, he's not either.
Okay, well, he was having a little bit of trouble with audio, Mr. Chairman, so we'll just give him a second. So there's the principal, the midpoint, and then the total.
So,
Yeah, this is the right one.
And I don't want to interrupt your flow too much.
No,
I'll
no,
leave
that was
it,
that was a good
No, if you-
stopping point, because we're gonna wait for Tori, or I'm hoping Tori can get audio in just a moment. If you look at the zoning table and board member, it is likely to the way the zoning regulations define height. There's,
Yeah, no, we have proposed, I think we have to.
I think it's not on the zoning location, sir. I think it's on the zoning location survey. I just can't read it. My copy of print is too small. If you had that electronically.
yeah, for whatever, board member, we can pull.
I know that, so I can give you this and we'll get it. I think it actually will come in a subsequent slide, but the proposed,
Isn't it on this slide? It's just too small for me to read it.
That's the zoning location story, yes, so, or zoning location survey.
Yes, so if
excuse
you have
me.
a bigger copy, you can read it on.
Yep, so if you look at that, there's 2 line items, if you will. There's the midpoint height, if you will, again, probably because of the zoning regulations and the way they're defined. The proposed single family will be 29.8, and the proposed 2-family will be 33.1. That's the midpoint. And then the total, actually, we can probably, no, I'm looking, apologies, board member. Look at the total height. That's the last row, if you will. Total principal height is 40, maximum in the zone is 40 feet, and the proposed will be 35.5 feet for the single family and 35.3 for the 2-family.
But what's the existing is the,
The existing's not on there for some reason, but I'm sure we can get that number for you. It might be elsewhere on the plans.
And can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. We do not have the existing height in feet. We only have the existing height in stories. The surveyors never provided us with that information.
And I know it's not apples to apples because of the orientation, it's a completely different structure. But what I'm trying to understand is the change in height within the setback area. So that it's higher if it's within regulations, back out of the setback area, not really focused on it. If it's within that setback area, that's where I'm trying to understand the difference.
Understood, board member. And we have some visuals coming up. I think
Okay.
we have elevations certainly that can give you a perspective. I know board member Cardy was interested in the elevations. Those are later on as well. But again, keep in mind, we are compliant with the zoning regulations with the proposed plan, both as to feet and as to stories. We're eliminating that height nonconformity as to stories.
Could I
So-
just quickly add context for the board with how our zoning regulations are written? For height specifically, so it's a little different in this case because, you know, they're tearing down the buildings, but let's say they were just adding on to these structures. Our regulations are written in a way where as of right, they could go up as long as it conformed to the regulations, even if they were over the setback. So if they were just proposing to go up a story on these existing buildings, assuming it met height requirements and story requirements, they would not be seeking a variance the way our regulations are written, just for reference of how height.
Even if they're in the setback
Correct.
area.
That is correct.
And are you sure that that complies with Connecticut law?
Yes, it is specifically written, essentially how case law has gone is that it's all a function of how your zoning regulations are written.
Mhm.
Your zoning regulations have to explicitly state that a variance would be needed in height. I've vetted this with the town attorney multiple times. We have routinely issued zoning permits for structures that are just going up over the setback.
The existence setback.
So with that, board members,
But
if
once,
there-
Sarah, once they expand into the setback, though, it becomes relevant. Like here, they're
Right.
expanding into the setback. So if the height goes higher within the expanded setback, I think it's a relevant issue.
So that's up to you all to determine. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
provide context
Okay.
for you.
Yep.
I mean, I think your position is, and as I think we're all hopefully aware of it, is that if you, under our regulations, we stay within the footprint. If you increase vertically, as long as you're within, you know, the story requirement and the height requirement.
Correct.
It's not an
That's why
issue.
they're here for
But here,
variance.
the variance is because of the 160 square feet.
Correct. That's why they're seeking a variance. Yep.
with that, Mr. Chairman, if there are no other questions from the board, I'm going to hand it over to Tori to walk through some of what I call the breakdown slides. I have nicknames for all of these, just to walk the board through the changes that were made to the plan. Tori?
Yep, okay. So I'm just gonna step in here and talk a little bit about our existing site conditions and steep slope. As Andrea stated before, our lot drops significantly 20 to 25 feet in grade from front to back over a very short period, which will require us to build over 500 feet of new retaining walls for our building, septic, and stormwater areas, which will significantly increase our site development costs on the site. So now I'm going to take you to this map that shows our site, 995 South Ave, that I'm circling here at the bottom of the map in the center. Now this map shows the topography of our lot as well as surrounding lots. The areas in gray and light yellow are very flat, and as the contours get tighter together, we see some steeper areas, and we really get into steep slopes where you see orange or these deep reds. Now, when we look to the west, we have a whole group of lots
Tori.
here that,
Tori?
yep,
Sorry, the chairman had a
On
question.
the gradient lines you just mentioned, what's the feet difference on each line? There's no scale on this cutout.
I am not sure what the,
Yeah, I don't know that, I don't know if we know that, what the feet contour is, but it's just like a heat map. So if it's white or yellow, it's relatively flat. And if it's, orange or reddish, as I get deeper into red. That's,
Well, each line denotes like a change in elevation, whether it be a 10-foot contour, 5
I,
foot,
w-
the map.
I would imagine that it's 5 feet, just judging by our lot and knowing that it drops about 20 feet from where it does. I would guess that these are 5-foot contours.
Thank you.
So again, as we look to the west here, we really see very little, if any, orange areas with steep slopes. And really all of these lots, I don't think would struggle at all to find buildable areas that are suitable for homes. As we look on the other side of South Ave to the east at all of these lots, it's really more of the same. We see very little orange areas. You might see some, but really all of these lots are fairly flat and can easily find suitable areas to build within their setbacks that aren't near water courses either. As we move to the center of the map is where we start to see a lot more features. We have our water course running through these lots, along with some steep slopes. Starting to the north, we have this first lot along the western side of South Ave, which actually has, I believe, 2 single-family homes here towards the front of their lot, but still a significant area to build in. Our next home is built back here where they have a nice flat area. The next home has their house built right here, right in the center, away from all their setbacks, where they have a nice flat area to build. Our abutters directly to the north actually have their home built over here on the western side of the water course, again, in a nice flat area that's away from the wetlands. And our abutters to the west also have their house right here in a nice flat area away from their setbacks. And now we look at our lot, where to the west of the water course, we have some flat land here, but this is all part of the wetlands, so we can't build there. And then to the east, we have our buffer away from those wetlands. And then you really see here immediately across the entire lot from north to south is steep slopes, pushing really the only available place to build in a flat area towards the front of these lots, which really I think speaks to probably why these houses were built where they were over 100 years ago, because that's really the feasible place to build on this site. So as we kind of look at this overall, I think it just speaks to the uniqueness of our lot when we look at surrounding lots. Clearly, our lot suffers much more of a hardship and difficulty in trying to find any place to build that's not at the front of the lot within the front setback. And now I just wanted to move to some zoomed in views here of each existing building, and we're going to overlay the proposed so that everybody can really clearly see what is existing and the changes that are happening. So we have our existing building outline here in red with our setback line and our property line. So this is the 995 building, which is 21.7 feet from the front setback. This building has 1,106 square feet of building coverage within the front setback. Now we overlay our proposed building, which is outlined here in blue. Our proposed building here is 28.1 feet from the front setback, which represents 6.4 foot reduction in nonconformity. And our proposed coverage within that front setback is 905 square feet of building coverage, which is a 201 square foot decrease in building coverage within the front setback. As we move to the other building, the same thing. We have our existing building here, setback line, property line. Our existing house is 18.8 feet from the front setback, and it has 638 square feet of building coverage within the front setback. Our proposed building, 24.1 feet from the front setback, which represents a 5.3 foot reduction in nonconformity. And our proposed 999 square foot of building coverage within the front setback is a 361 square foot increase in building coverage seen here. This slide just zooms out and shows you both of the lots and all of these figures overlaid together, resulting in our 160 square foot increase in building coverage, which is the reason we're here today and what we're asking for. Are there any
Thanks.
questions regarding this?
Any questions from the board member, Mr. Chairman? No? Okay.
Any
Oh,
questions, anybody?
Nope.
Is Tori also going to be walking through the septic or is that a different?
That's Justin. So I was just about to hand the mantle
Yeah.
over to Justin.
Yeah.
So Justin is our consulting professional engineer, licensed in Connecticut with Force Engineering. So Justin?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, board members, thanks for your time. Tori, if you want to bring up, oh, good, you brought up the slide. So it's, as you can see, it's relatively similar to what we had presented back in May. We have, for the single family home at 985 South Avenue, you still have the infiltration system in the front of the house and the septic system in the rear of the house. The location of the septic system is largely driven by the minimum separation requirement to the retaining wall near the wetland buffer, and then a bare minimum separation to the home, which is uphill from the septic system of 10 feet, and also to the retaining wall that's necessary to hold up the driveway. I would just note that to keep that driveway up there, it brought the garage up to that level, and that's where some of that footprint needed to expand for the single family home. Originally, the garage for this building at 985 was in the rear of the property of the building, and down a steep grade and relatively dangerous coming up through the driveway that's closer to Talmadge Hill. Just to note there, and to make the grades work within the regulations, we needed all these retaining walls around the building and down at the buffer so that we don't grade into that wetland buffer and we can keep it in its state. Continuing down to the multifamily at 995, now we have that where we mentioned the septic system is down in the corner, which is it also entirely in the setback, but it's underground, so it's allowed by the regulations. And we moved it down there to get it out of the way and be able to push the building as far back as possible. One of the original plans had the septic system behind the house and the infiltration over where the current location of the septic system is. But we ended up going back and retesting so that we could relocate it and get even more setback from the road. And then you'll see the main infiltration system is under the driveway behind 995, with the retaining wall past that. And then on the lower level, just before the 25-foot wetland buffer, we have a smaller infiltration system. And this is to capture basically the driveway that's heading down to Talmadge Hill by the property line. And, water just goes downhill, generally speaking. So we found that lower system to handle the smaller portion of the driveway that we couldn't capture for the larger system up top, to take care of the stormwater requirements. And these were all for the updated requirements of the 100-year storm that happened. I forget when it was updated, but I know it was updated. And then some of the questions about the driveway locations. So the one existing driveway to the north on 985, that's as far from the intersection as you can get. And it's compliant as far as like sight lines and everything. So that was a decent location for the driveway of 985, and is also the main driveway for that. Whereas before, that structure had a driveway at that location, and then it also came off of the 995 driveway that came to South Avenue. And that driveway came relatively close to the intersection. And it was the only way to get to the garage for that building. Now the driveway from 995 that was on South Avenue has been relocated to the rear garages on 995 and then comes out on Talmadge Hill. The difference between South Avenue and Talmadge Hill, aside from one being owned by the state and the other by the town, is that South Avenue, I believe, I'm just going to triple check this here. So Talmadge Hill is a local roadway classification, which is the lowest order roadway, in the functional classification system. And South Avenue is, functional class as a other principal arterial, which is one of the highest order roadways that, are in the functional classification system. And the functional classification system is what drives all roadway design standards. It's one of the main factors, that and design speed. So that, when the state's designing roads or the town would be designing a road, that's one of the major drivers of what criteria you're using for that design. And generally speaking, when you have an option of having a driveway or an access point on two different roadways, you would always pick the lower class roadway because it assumably has less traffic and would be a safer option. And that's what we did here. And we analyzed the sight lines coming around in both directions, and did some regrading where that septic system is located on the corner. And currently there's like a retaining wall there with steep higher grades. So we're pulling that back down so that you can see up to and around the corner for your sight line around that corner. One of the benefits of this intersection is it's a T intersection, and so there's no through movement through the intersection on Talmadge Hill. All the traffic is coming at a slower pace because they have to make that turn, as opposed to somebody that could go straight through the intersection. Another point about this, I believe there was some concern raised that maybe one of the letters that was submitted about a traffic impact study or some sort of traffic study being done. Now, we didn't do a traffic study for this driveway. Generally speaking, you wouldn't do one for this type of development project. It's, we're not really adding trips. It's the same number of dwellings that were on the property to begin with. We're actually relocating the driveway to a theoretically safer location. And that it does have the sight lines, but also is a lower functional class roadway. I emailed over to Dan and his team. There's a road safety brief, and I don't know if Tori can get this over to the board for to be submitted as part of the record. But the T2 Center at which is the Training and Technical Assistance Center at the Connecticut Transportation Institute. This institute's part of UConn's engineering department's research and training group. And one of the things that they do is this T2 Training and Technical Assistance, which provides assistance all over the state when it comes to transportation issues. And this particular road safety brief 2024-6, they specifically talked about what is a traffic impact study and when is one needed. On page 2, under when is a traffic impact study needed, they state, and I'm just going to quote here from it, generally, the suggested baseline for requiring a traffic impact study is when a development generates 100 new trips to the adjacent street network during the peak hour of the adjacent street traffic. So keeping that in mind, in whatever the highest trafficked hour of the day is, if you're adding 100 trips or more to that, is generally what would trigger doing a traffic impact study to make sure that you're not really impacting the public roadway network without taking proper precautions and all that. When you look at this site, if it was totally undeveloped and we were putting a single family home and a multi-family home, what we would probably estimate is about 10 trips for the single family home per day, not in the peak hour, but across the entire day. And then also for the multifamily, you would get somewhere between 8 and 10 trips per unit. It's a little fluctuating depending on bedroom count and things, or unit counts and how it's organized, but generally 10 would be a maximum number. So across all 3 units, you'd have 30 trips per day. With that, you would have many fewer trips in the peak hour that are added to the roadway network. And that's if you're starting from a totally undeveloped lot. In this case, the lot is already developed with a single family home and a multifamily home. So the increase, if you would even consider any increase, might be a bedroom count. Though we probably wouldn't consider that very large. And you know, even with that, you'd be talking maybe a couple of trips a day. So you know, you're nowhere near adding 100 trips in the peak hour. You're barely adding a few trips a day if the analysis would see it that way. So you're not even close to what the Connecticut Transportation Institute would recommend to the board as requiring a traffic impact study for this project, which is why you generally never see it for single family or multifamily developments until you get to very large unit counts in the hundreds. So you know, that would just be for that issue for safety of this driveway and impact to the road network. Aside from that, if there are any questions about the site plan or where things were placed, I could answer them.
Justin, real quick,
Yeah.
would you, I don't know if you hit on this exactly, because there is, you know, there's a whole bunch of measurements there about, you know, 51 feet away from this and 60 feet away from that. Would you mind just running through why everything got placed where it was and why we're kind of pigeonholed into like those spots?
Sure. So with the wetlands and the watercourse being where they are, that's setting our lower retaining wall location. And from the retaining wall location, you have 25 feet to that septic system. That's a minimum requirement. And one of the issues that we also have is that we can't have any groundwater control drains in that retaining wall because it's within 25 feet. So that retaining wall itself has to be designed a little bit more substantially to withstand a hydrostatic force as well. And then behind it is the 10-foot separation to the principal structure. And with that, you also can't have a foundation drain in the rear there. Now, we found that the soils were very well draining in this area and on the other side. And the majority of the back there is a walkout to catch the grade off of the back of the building a little bit better. So we really didn't need the groundwater drains back there, and you have a slab in the garage. So we're able to eliminate that requirement and be able to put in the septic system in that location. And then if you look at the 59-foot separation, now that's for the infiltration system to the that's the 54. So the 54 and the 59-foot setback to the south of it are both the minimum requirements for separation to these systems, because the infiltration system for the stormwater can cause groundwater mounding. It can influence where that depth to that groundwater is, which is a driving factor of the septic system placement as far as where it is vertically in the ground. And so in order to follow the code requirements for the septic system, they have a minimum separation. And it's the same to the infiltration at the south. Now, and then to the septic system, again, the same idea has to be more than 50 feet. And this is a multifamily classification, so that's the minimum requirement gets increased for that location, which is compliant. And then as far as the infiltration system, generally, you know, keeping some distance to the principal structure so that it can properly filter the storm waters through the soil is also required, and same with the retaining wall on the south end.
Mr.
Is that-
Chairman,
Thank you.
Well, can you wait on your question?
before he leaves, I'd like to make a comment.
Well, you'll get to make your he'll stay till the end of the meeting, I presume. So if you have questions.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
We'll answer them.
Yeah.
Cynthia, do you have a question?
Justin, I might have misunderstood what you were saying. In your new plan, did you, I guess in a previous plan, were you saying that both of the 985 and 995 were accessing the driveway was off of Talmadge Hill, and that this new plan that you're submitting, you changed the driveways? Or did I misunderstand?
Not on my plan, but the existing site accesses, sorry, I don't know if you can bring up the one of my plans or the survey.
Well, my only reason for asking is I'm looking at what was submitted in May. And the driveways are exactly the same as what you're proposing now. So I'm just asking, I might have misunderstood, but I thought I heard you say that access to all 3 units used to be from Talmadge Hill with the driveway going through the back.
So Justin,
No, I sorry if I misspoke. It wasn't access from Talmadge Hill. It was all the buildings access from South Avenue across the 2 driveways. But the north building, 985, actually had 2 driveways. One that's up to the north, that was just a pull-in, and then one from the same driveway that 995 used to access the garage in the basement. So I don't know if to where you can follow that, and that's how they were able to access their garage.
Justin, I believe what you might have meant was both of the current driveways come from South Avenue. And you
Yes.
tried to move one of them off of South Avenue to a lower usage roadway.
Right, and to maintain access to the garage, which is one of the drivers for increasing why there's a bigger increase of coverage in the front setback for that 985.
Does
was
the
because
driveway-
garage was moved up.
Does the driveway off Talmadge Hill comply with the required sight lines? You mentioned the one off South Avenue does, but I don't know if you spoke
Yeah,
about.
the one on Talmadge, because that's the new driveway, I have it on the plan. And it shows, coming up to South Avenue, you come around the corner some, which is why we cleared down and regraded that whole corner area. And then going west on Talmadge Hill, the road curves and straightens out, so you can see pretty far down the road in that direction, with plenty more than you need for a sight line.
So what's the required sight line heading towards South Ave?
I believe it's on there if you zoom in. I have the calculation on the plan as well.
Justin, I can chime in here. So when you're coming out of the driveway on Talmadge, if you were to take a left or you were to head east, the minimum is 165-foot sight line. And then if you were to take a right on Talmadge Hill or heading out of the driveway, heading west, the minimum is 276 square feet, and we meet that. We meet both.
So coming out of Talmadge Hill, you're saying you have a 165-foot south sight line to South Avenue?
With the
Right.
grade changes,
So
Justin,
the design speed, the speed that you're traveling influences your sightline requirements. And coming around the corner, is very conservative, using a 15-mile-per-hour design speed. You'd have to be going pretty fast to make that turn at 15 miles per hour. It's more than a 90-degree turn, so that's what I used in my calculations for that direction. And coming in the other direction, I used the design speed for Talmadge Hill.
But you're saying the required sight line, what is the required? You're saying the proposed is 165, but what's the required?
That's what it is. That's the minimum sight line required for
So
that
it's right at,
access
so
point. Well, what I'm showing on the plan is what's required to meet the minimum requirement as far as regrading that corner. So that's generally how you would treat sightline, is how much distance you need to see oncoming traffic, and that's what it would be to safely navigate that entrance to Talmadge Hill.
So once it's regraded, the sight line's gonna be 165 feet, and you need 165 feet.
correct.
Right. So I'm just showing you what you need to meet the requirement. No
And-
extra.
And then the septic system for 985, why can't that move northerly at all?
Because you end up getting too close to the property line. So Tori, if you could go up on the plan.
I think I gotta move to the other sheet.
Other way. Oh, okay. So let me just get to the same sheet of music. So you're about 15.6 feet away, which is a typical separation distance from a property line. I believe you can go as low as 10, but in this case, if you notice, the existing contours begin to change right at the end of that system, and they take a sharp left. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, but there's a huge berm there right on the property line. I don't know if there used to be an old bridge across the stream or what it was, but there's a large berm there, and then it goes up on this side, and it flattens out at the top, and then it goes back down on the other side of the property line that you can't see in this survey. But that's a lot of fill that's there, and we didn't want to impact that fill. And generally, you don't want to place the septic system too deep in the ground. And with the grading requirements of the town and the setback requirements for the septic system, that's about as far north as we could push this.
Justin, what speed,
Yes.
you said you assumed a certain speed for the cars on South Avenue. Did I hear you correctly?
That's right. It was 15 miles per hour coming around the curve.
And that's coming around the curve that is the north curve, closer to the Merritt?
Yes, coming down and around that corner. Going the other direction, you can see fairly well across there. In this case, the controlling was that particular location, which is why we regraded that corner. You'll see, if you zoom in a little bit, you'll notice the contours drop about 3 feet, I believe. 2.5 to 3 feet. So right along Talmadge Hill, there's a retaining wall. And so that'll be removed, and these contours will be smoothed out. That retaining wall is also not compliant with the regulations, with the distance to the property line. Now this is in Darien, so it wouldn't trigger Canaan's regulations for retaining walls, but still we held it, treated it the same, to comply with both towns. So you'll see that the grading behind the wall was reduced significantly to allow for that sight line from the driveway all the way up. And you might see this better on the last plan we were on, the zoning plan where the sight line is shown. So it's this hatched area is the what you would call a site triangle, even though in this case it's a little awkward shaped. But you notice the contour lines start to bend right after that site triangle. So the driver's eye is in the middle of the driveway, set 2.5 feet up, and then the object is in the roadway 2.5 feet up in the center of the travel lane of oncoming traffic. And you'll see, so basically you can look to your left and see to that portion of the road and be able to determine whether there's a car coming or not.
Yeah.
And all these contours were reduced, some of them significantly, especially near the retaining wall, so that you could maintain that sight line all the way through this maneuver.
Okay, I think I understand now. The 15-mile-per-hour assumption is a right-hand turn off of South Avenue onto
Correct.
Talmadge Hill, that right-hand. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so the speed is the car that's coming on the roadway.
Okay.
Yep, and obviously the faster you go, the more distance you need to see them before it's an issue.
And you're saying that if a car is coming up South Avenue, taking the left, there's not the sight line at concern?
No, I didn't see a sightline concern there. You had quite a bit more distance that you could see around that area.
Justin, I had a quick question too. This is
Mhm.
Jessica Carden. The positions
Hi.
of the septic system and the infiltration system that are closer to the property line, is there any concern, particularly with South Avenue, of any potential, I'll call it adverse possession as a better, lack of a better word, but encroachment by state or town needs, if there's ever expansion of those streets or anything like that? Are you still buffered where your positioning is for those types of situations?
Yeah, I mean, if they took more of that corner there, which would be quite an ask considering this is already a non-conforming lot as far as size, and you can see that the lot, as we get there, if you go down a little more, Tori. So you see the corner of the lot actually goes onto the current asphalt in Darien, the very southeast southeast corner. So the edge of road curves around and it actually clips the corner of this lot. So, you know, if they were to widen this turn for some reason to make this maneuver better, for one, we did some of the work for them by leveling this out some, but also we'd still be maintaining quite a separation to that roadway. As far as where we're going, you'll still have at least the 15 feet or 10 feet to the side, because this isn't a system that raised out of the ground. So the 10-foot would be the minimum. And then as far as encroachment, you know, even if they were to widen the road there, it's not necessarily going to need that they need to take property from here. But you know, if they were going to take the property for a road project, they would be taking all this into account and have to compensate the property owner to do that. Otherwise, it would be a taking by the Department of Transportation of the house if they're taking away its ability to drain its effluent. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I also just want to add as counsel for the applicant, through you to Board Member Cardin, in theory, if there were some type of taking at that corner, it would be, in theory, a negotiation with some type of easement that would allow us to maintain, because obviously DOT would not want to violate public health code when it comes to septic. So there would be some type of negotiation regarding easements, regarding the maintenance and keeping the septic there. Sometimes the town gets involved if things do have to be moved, if we truly can't keep the improvement within that area via some easement with the taking entity or the governmental entity, you'd get the town involved. So I'm not, from council's perspective, I'm not concerned because there's 1,000 different ways to address that. But Justin's point is well taken, that there's still room to take, even with the septic there.
Where are the reserve areas for the septic systems?
That's a Justin question, Mr. Chairman.
Justin?
Yeah. So with pre-developed sites, there's no requirement for a reserve system for the Connecticut technical standards. It's just not necessary to do that. If this were an empty lot and we were proposing development, they would need it. But just a little background on that, the reserve system is really there in case something happens during construction, so that they know for a new home on a new undeveloped lot. And once the system is accepted and a permit to discharge is issued, the reserve system goes away. It's a temporary measure for new lots is really what it is. There's code compliant areas that come into effect if you have a developed lot and you want to say do an addition or add a pool or something like that. But that's just to prove that you have at least one location that's code compliant. In this plan, basically we're saying we have these locations that are code compliant and we're going to use them. And that's all that the health code requires.
Yeah, Rich Caratu, I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like to discuss it just for the record. So let's assume the principal says, he bought this lot and he's going to knock down these buildings, existing buildings, and build brand new houses on the exact footprint. And I know you probably, we went through this, okay? So he builds on the exact footprint. Can we go through what he violates as far as, septic, or, does he violate anything? What happens, given all the requirements of the septic, of the retaining wall, of, what gets violated if we stay in the exact same footprint?
So there's a lot to unpack there.
Okay.
We have this. So you're saying building brand new buildings triggering all the requirements?
Yeah, but in the exact same footprint that you have that is existent today, right? What happens? Does Kathy Holland get upset, or does what do we violate?
Well, you're. Yeah.
Justin, just to be clear, I want to make sure we understand your question, board member. So through you, Mr. Chairman, the question is if we were to redevelop new homes in the existing footprint of the existing buildings, could we still comply with the
Whatever
wetlands
has to
buffer,
be done.
septic, drainage, stormwater, soil erosion and sediment control, all of that. Could we
Right,
still comply with
or
all that?
what's happening is yeah, right. So like, in theory, what is, in violation today of this property as with the septic system? And I just want to review that.
I don't think you mean like in violation, like if the septic system complies. You're saying, could you build it on the exact same footprint? And then what would the issues be with placing the septic system, the
Exactly.
infiltration system?
Yeah, nothing to do with the functional,
Right.
but yeah, more the geographic location.
Better way to put it, yes.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Are you looking for that from a permitting perspective?
No, just a code perspective.
Yeah, like could he rebuild, if he stayed on the exact same footprint? Could he put
A septic in
in
compliance,
compliance, infiltration in compliance?
the retaining wall and or whatever he has.
Yeah,
to
whatever he
do.
has to do.
So there's a lot going on there, but I'll try to answer it as best as I can. I think one of the issues you would have would be, I mean, if you did it the same way that they were built with the basements, and you'd have an issue with your separation to your foundation drain for the septic system on the north end. That would increase from our 10-foot proposed to a 25-foot, which would drive that building pretty close to the property line, like within 4 feet, I think, if I'm looking at this correctly. So basically you wouldn't be able to put that septic system there because you would have an increased setback due to the foundation drain of 25 feet. So then you wouldn't be able to deal with that home in the way that we have it proposed, at least. I don't know how you would do it in that instance. Because in that area of the lot, you wouldn't have any other location you could put it with the retaining wall where it is, trying to bring the height nonconformity into compliance and things of that nature. Same with the stormwater infiltration in the front. It would be a lot closer to the structure, which would be less desirable. I don't know that there's a hard and fast number with the town, but generally speaking, a 10-foot minimum is what you're looking for to the principal structure, and that's what I believe I've held more than 10 feet. It's 11 or 12 feet to that infiltration system that's in the ground in the front of that building. So a lot of these issues are with this particular building, which is also the building that is non-compliant, if I'm correct. This is the 3-story building, is that right, Tori? Or
Correct.
yeah.
Yes.
So this building in particular has an issue. With the other building, again, the footprint is closer to that stormwater infiltration system, and I'm not sure if did you mean to keep the driveways in their locations as well, or I'm just trying to think out loud with this scenario with you. Did you
Because
want
again, Rich, character, what I'm just trying to think about is, are you forced to change the footprint to comply with the codes that you need to comply with because you're putting up a new building in the existing footprint? So meaning that, are you saying it's virtually impossible to put up the building in the exact same footprint because you wouldn't be compliant with the septic and the?
I mean,
Help you out.
yeah,
Meaning-
so putting, like I
I
said,
mean,
with
usually
yeah.
it's got your God-given right to use the same footprint, put up a building, right? But
Yeah.
if I'm not gonna be in compliant with the new septic or rules and with, whatever else that you have to do, are you saying that you can't put up a new structure using the exact same footprint? You're forced to move it.
Yeah, so a lot of the
Simple.
some of that God-given right is like you have to use the existing shell, not just the footprint.
What Rick
yeah.
is saying is, could you build on the same footprint of this existing house and put us for, let's say 985, Can you build
Mhm.
on the existing footprint for 985 and put a septic system?
Not, it, I mean, with that existing building, it has the basement and the foundation drain, so you couldn't.
I know, but if you built on the same footprint with, say, a walkout basement, could you do it?
I mean, we are, we're in the same footprint, just further back from the road. So I mean, our current plan does
Can
that
I,
with the exception that we're extending the footprint to the south. And
can I
that,
jump in?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that's interesting question. Because like, for example, we're moving the structure, whatever, 6 or 7 feet back. And for example, a lot of these measurements were pushed right up against, like, for example, we only have 10 feet, or we only have, 10 feet for the drainage system in the front and we're at like 11. So if you didn't push the buildings back off the road there, would some of these dimensions just not work? I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm too simple about it, but I'm just saying, I believe in my opinion, everyone has the right to build something on the existing footprint of what you bought. But are you being told that you can't do that because you're gonna violate wetland issues, septic issues, Can you build on your exact same footprint? Don't, stop and use or if you went into wetlands and said, hey, I'm putting up a brand new building, right exactly where I have the foundation. Let's assume you're going to use the same foundation. I'm not saying you would. Would wetlands be okay with that? Would, the septic be okay with that?
I'm going to jump in here, and certainly, Justin, if you have something else to add,
Sure.
It's a simple question. It's a little bit more involved. I can say generally, we could not achieve the benefits of this site, which are.
No, it's not a legal question. It's, can you build a building if this is the existing footprint?
Yeah, just build.
Can you use the same foundation, build a brand new house and be able to put in your septic and all you need to put in?
He doesn't mean foundation, he means footprint.
Footprint.
Just be devil's advocate. Maybe they haven't looked into this, so they may not have the
Well,
right
that's a
answer
basic
for it.
question because.
I'm
Like
just,
if-
I'm
like
just
if you
throwing
could-
it out there.
like
Like,
if you could-
we're asking them for potentially an answer they don't have, like,
Well, it runs the answer.
the
when we're not
data
saying
or the
anything.
studies to
Because I
understand.
can't decide that because fundamental, if you could, in my opinion, if you could put in a brand new house or whatever you're doing in the exact same footprint and meet all the requirements and have your 2-family dwelling and your 1-family dwelling, then, that's what you have to do because that's what you bought, in my opinion. If you're telling me you can't do that because Kathy Holland is not going to approve the septic, therefore you have to change the footprint and go closer to the road, all right, maybe you have a hardship. But if you could achieve in building a 2-family house and a 1-family house in the exact same footprint that you bought, that's what you have to do, in my opinion. I think it's pretty simple.
Well,
So
they
when it
also
comes up,
don't
you
have,
can-
they haven't gone to the full coverage though, so that's not really true.
No, they're
I
expanding they're expanding the amount in the setback. So I think the question is, if you could build and make reasonable use of your property, which is the one in the 2-family house, as he says, on the same footprint, then you really don't need a variance. There's no need for variance then. But if the conditions of the lot make it so you can't put a septic
you have a
in
hardship.
or
And I guess
infiltration system, then you have a hardship. But if you could build on the same footprint, how is there, if you could legally
I
reconstruct. the
think
structure,
though,
what's the
when they
hardship?
have a coverage amount, we have to keep in mind that they're not even the existing footprint isn't even at coverage for this
Oh,
lot.
but they're not asking for coverage. variance,
I
they're
know
asking
they
for-
aren't. To that point, they're still not maximizing coverage. And they do have geographic and other topographic hardships with this land.
But the fact you have hardships, if you can make reasonable use of your property
Right.
without,
Rich, I want to try to, I see where you're going with your question, but let me approach it differently and maybe I missed something along the way. People lived in these homes at one point, right?
Right.
And they had functioning toilets and showers, right?
I don't know.
When they lived there?
Who knows?
I don't know. Well,
No.
Would this help answer Rich's question if Justin or if you guys can you point out on the existing survey where the current septic is? Would that help answer this? Like,
No, because the current probably doesn't comply with the requirements.
It
The
doesn't.
question is could they stay, it should be like a yes or no question, like, could they build on the same foot? I would think before you would start going through saying you need a variance, you would establish we can't build on the existing footprint, because then they wouldn't need a variance.
Yeah, Justin, can
Yeah.
you build in the same footprint as the existing buildings and comply with all of the retaining walls, septic systems, stormwater, soil erosion sediment and control requirements from the regs, the CTDEP, CTDPH? Could you comply with all of that just building in the existing footprint, or would there be issues with that?
So, complying with the health department so ignoring zoning regulations, but just talking about health department and DOT
Yeah, health and wetlands, could you comply with the health, the wetlands, and the drainage requirements on the same footprint
And DPH?
in DPH?
right. I suppose you could find a way. You'd be taking away some of the existing structure that's there. I think, in this case, we're proposing to reduce and eliminate on multiple nonconformities.
You're going off a tangent. You
No,
got,
I think I think he is related, because there's
Okay.
two issues. So he acknowledged they could build on the same footprint and
okay.
comply with this stuff. I think that answered your question. So the second
For
question
health,
is, even
right,
if there's not necessarily a per se hardship like that, because they could build on the same footprint and make reasonable use or whatever, are they making it non-conforming? Because if they're making, more conforming, if they're making it more conforming, that's an independent ground to grant a variance.
Agreed.
And here they're saying they're
Right.
making, here I think he's acknowledged that they might not be like hardship per se, because they could theoretically build on the same footprint and comply with the stuff, but he's making it more conforming by moving it back from the road and making it from 3 stories to 2.5 stories. In the square coverage,
So-
and staying within the allowable lot coverage. So I think their
Right.
position, I'm not gonna
And
speak for them, is that a variance should be granted on the grounds that they're reducing the non-conformities and making it more compliant.
Correct. And I think, to the point that there's still under coverage as well. And I do think, when we're looking at coverage for a lot, that trying to maximize or get close to your full coverage is, under most circumstances, a reasonable use of the land. I think we do need to take that into consideration, particularly where they're actually eliminating a lot of non-conforming issues.
I don't think maximizing lot coverage is necessary for reasonable use of the land. I think that.
I'm not
thing
saying
here
it's
is-
necessary. I think it's a reasonable use, may not be a necessary use, but it's reasonable to want to maximize the coverage that you have associated with the
I
lot
know,
that you
but
just purchased.
reasonableness is not a test for a variance.
I'm not saying we look at that. I'm just saying it's a factor that I think is in favor of looking at this. I don't think we have to necessarily look at like a false scenario. We should look at the plan in front of us.
So
Mr.
I don't
Chairman?
want to cut this conversation short, but I know it's already 8:30. I know there may be people from the public that want to speak. Do we want to try to finish out the applicant's presentation and?
Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may just respond to what you just said, and I'll just wrap up
Okay.
quickly and then I defer to you, but perhaps hand it over to the public. Just wanted to know, I want to focus on what Justin said, that building in the existing footprint, you could theoretically find a way to make the other things work, but he did say you'd have to remove some of the existing structure. So I want to make that clear that we would have to reduce at least one of the structures in order to comply with everything. So I think Justin, did I hear that correctly?
Right, the existing, if you scroll
What
up,
would you have to reduce specifically within the structure? If you're building within the same, I don't understand, what would you have to reduce?
So I
well,
just
you would
want to,
lose the basement most likely. If you're looking at where we're putting the garage is a slab on grade that's well above the existing elevations there. And that's allowing for the septic system to be placed where it is. You would have to fill in and lose that area in the basement on the existing footprint if you weren't able to shift the basement portion to the south. Does that
What are
make
the
sense?
dimensions of the proposed garage for 985?
It's a 2-car garage.
No, but what's,
Not sure the exact dimensions. It's,
it should be on one of the
story,
plans, I just have them too small.
Yep, we're pulling that up for you, Mr. Chairman. And then, Mr. Chairman, as we get this up, I just wanted to make clear, and this is what I was trying to say before, I wasn't trying to circumvent
No, no,
the
no.
direct answer. Board Member Caratu, just wanted to note, there is no possible way for us to both comply with all of the regulatory provisions you mentioned, wetlands, septic, stormwater, soil erosion and sediment control. I think that was it. And also eliminate the height nonconformity, reduce the existing front setback nonconformities, and grade the site to clear the sight lines. So that's the juxtaposition I was trying to make.
Right.
There's no way to accomplish all of those things. And I'll get to this in my closing comments, but there's overall a policy in the state and in New Canaan zoning regulations to bring sites more into conformity whenever possible. So I'll leave it at
Right,
that.
yeah,
and then
no,
we'll-
I don't disagree with that. But, yeah,
What are those?
And
dimensions?
I just wanted to add one thing, maybe why the answer wasn't so readily available. To have that answer readily available, we would have had to game plan building a new construction home in a spot that has a 768 square foot footprint. It's theoretically, you know, we can talk about it, but actually to do that and what that structure would look like and how would that be able to live in modern day standards is, you know what I mean? That's a.
yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But
It's a difficult thing to address off the cuff, is I think what we're
Yeah,
doing.
you know, I
So while it's
understand.
theoretically possible, you couldn't functionally build a house in a 768 square foot footprint, you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
And achieve everything else that we're achieving.
That's what I'm
as
asking.
well.
so you really couldn't rebuild on the same spot
Yeah, no,
as a builder, you're
no,
saying?
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, no, that's an important
And that-
answer.
that's an important answer.
Absolutely not. Yes, if that's what you're asking me,
Correct.
yeah, absolutely not.
I still
Nobody
can't,
has built.
Right, now, I'm just trying to help,
No,
because there's
absolutely.
some basics
Yeah,
in my
no.
mind.
Yes,
It's sort of, it could be very basic here.
yeah,
Understood.
absolutely. If I can answer it in that way.
so
There has been nobody who's built a new structure in this town that is anywhere near 768 square feet for a building footprint. That is like,
so
you know,
the garage is 23 feet, 8 inches by 20 feet. No, yeah,
22 and a half.
by 22 and a half. So it's not, this is actually a small garage.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I have some closing comments. I'm gonna wrap up, but just for the benefit of the public and for I'm gonna skip around a little bit. I'm gonna ask Tori to just go back to our slideshow and go to slide 34. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, and this is again, just really to inform for the public's benefit during public comment, excuse me. Yeah. No, we're just gonna do this and then I'll go back to everything else. Yeah, so I just wanted to put this up again, just to remind the board what currently exists on site today. And then if you can go to the following slide, Tori. And this is to Board Member Cardin's commentary from last meeting, and then I believe you were interested in it as well. And I believe Board Member Snyder as well. Here are the revised renderings for the site of what you're seeing. And this reflects certainly the landscaping, the design, the high-end construction. And then the big one is pushing the buildings back from the front property line. I just wanted to pull that up. And then certainly, can you go to and we'll come back to this in my closing comments, but Tori, can you go to the next slide quickly? And here is that robust landscaping plan that we submitted as part of the revised plans. Again, we'll go back to this, but we had a conversation with some of the neighbors. And again, some of the commentary we heard at the main meeting was concerns about visual impacts from the property to the west on Talmadge Hill, looking at our property. So what we did was we increased that landscape buffer as much as we possibly could along the water course, which certainly has benefits for the water course as well. And then certainly just going through, we can come back to this, but we have just two sheets of elevations so that the board can see a little bit more detail on the elevations here. Just wanted to put that out there for the benefit of the public instead of saving it for my closing comments. With that, Mr. Chairman, if the board doesn't have any other comments, I respectfully suggest that we go to the public, if that's okay with you. And then we're here for questions and closing comments as well.
That's what we, fine.
Yep, okay, great.
Yep.
Took down.
Take a quick bathroom break.
Yeah, we'll take a break for 5 minutes. Anyone here in favor of the application? Is there anyone here who is opposed to the application? Okay, so we have 4 people. Everyone will get their chance to present your concerns. We'll listen to everyone, give everyone an opportunity to speak. Please direct your questions to the board. And then we'll of course consider everyone's comments, and the applicant will then get a chance to present and to try to address your concerns. Can you try to limit your comments to things on the new application? If you've already made the same factor, if it didn't change in the application and you already made the comment, it's already on the record. So we don't need to hear this comment on the same thing twice. If something on the application changed, and you have a comment, of course, we'd like to hear it. You know, and any comments about the new application, but we already heard.
We didn't get, excuse me, we didn't get the updated everything. When you say the application, if it's been changed, I mean, we were never provided for that.
Well, the application doesn't, it's not mailed to everybody. You get notice of the hearing, which you had, and then the application is posted on the town website. So,
She heard it.
yeah, so, and they just went through the application as well. So, everyone had a copy of the application, whether they downloaded it off the, internet or not, but everyone's had notice of this hearing. So, is there an order you would like to present your comments in, or? No?
Like 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, you can have as much time as you want if you want to come up
Please come up, introduce yourself.
and state your address, your name and address, and, you know, we appreciate everyone's feedback.
Please sit down in front of the
Yeah.
microphone so we can
It's
hear you on
recorded, so we
Zoom.
need you to speak into the microphone.
That's my bride. She's,
Bride of 60 years.
okay, she's the one who came here 30 years ago and answered, "What's your hardship?" And when she left, they got a standing ovation. So I just
I'm a lawyer.
and maybe some of you have heard the story. And out of that came probably the finest gardens in New Canaan, if not Connecticut, okay? Which
We
is right
appreciate
across
that.
the street,
Okay.
okay? All right,
So
so
can you state your name and your wife's name? for
my
the
name
record?
is Jack Karcher. Her name is Lois. We're at 2 Lane, which is half in New Canaan, half in Darien.
What's the address?
2
To do
And we
lane?
have 3 acres. Okay? We live next to Tim Dan.
Okay.
Okay? I can tell you the history of all the famous people. You're not interested, but there are some very famous people that lived within 100 yards of this site here. Very famous. Ely Callaway, Callaway Golf, and Wayne Callaway, CEO of PepsiCo. They were both neighbors of this parcel,
Okay.
okay? Just so you know.
Do you
No,
want
no,
to, if you're,
Jack, we do not have 3 acres. See, this is why.
if you're gonna present, you need to come up to the
Why
lectern.
don't, what is it your wife come up to?
Yeah,
right? Is
we
that allowed?
need to, we can't,
We have a little over 2 acres, but then we have, I mean, yes, an acre of property that we own. But then we also have a perpetual easement of an acre. That gives us 3 acres.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, just say your name, please,
Yeah.
ma'am, like.
I'm sorry?
Your name for the
Your-
record.
Oh, Lois
wanted to
Karcher, Karcher, 2 Lane. Jack, the only, you go
Let me
ahead.
just, first of all, she thinks Dan's great, so let's just
Let-
clear
let-
everything here.
Okay,
Okay, here's what is wrong. Okay? Let me just tell you one story and then tell you why it's wrong. We had a reduction in our valuation of our home in Darien of 10% for one reason recently, in the last 12 months, because of the traffic on South Avenue and Talmadge Hill. He has no idea what's going on in Talmadge Hill today and Merritt Parkway. At 4 o'clock, that place is packed both ways, south packed. They cut across Stephen Mather, they go to Norwalk. It is beyond description what's gone on. And for him to put these 2 things close together and risk everything on all these different things he's
Merritt
supposed to
and-
qualify for, it's gonna be nothing but hell to pay, okay? So you're pushing everything to the limit. Talmadge Hill, I don't know how many bedrooms are in the 2-family house, Way too many?
Ask the question, Jack.
How many bedrooms in the house as it stands? now?
Multi-ham,
Multi-family house.
I believe that was discussed last meeting. They'll present it again. They'll answer that, I'm sure. But your concern is that the traffic on Talmadge Hill is higher than their traffic, than what they're saying.
And he
Without
said
question.
he's totally wrong on how he presented. The houses have been vacant. He's talking about vacant homes. I think there's 6 or 7 bedrooms in the 2-family homes, okay? And kids, and you come around those corners in trucks
and
and
they're not gonna have any yard.
But if
If the
his,
children-
but his sight line, you're saying is his sight line calculation, you're saying is off because it's a different class of road, or I'm
no,
not.
he can, the sight line might be okay, but that's under the best of conditions. When they line up 10 cars back trying to get on Talmadge Hill, or 10 cars coming up Talmadge Hill to make a left or right, it blows your
It
mind,
really does.
the traffic there. It's beyond description.
And that's why I asked the question.
Dan
Steve.
doesn't understand, nobody's gonna wanna buy a house with that exposure.
Was no, I mean, really, I don't see how they would. If you built one big, beautiful house and took away 2 ideas, and you built one big, beautiful house, and it was fabulous.
And then he
I
would
wouldn't have a
conform to the
problem with it.
majority of what he's supposed to
You know,
conform to.
Okay, let's try, can you,
But my
can you
problem-
please try to talk to us and so that.
My problem is,
information
how many bedrooms in the rental house?
The number of bedrooms is not something he's seeking a
Well, what,
variance.
it used to be, it was never bathrooms for septic. When I practiced law in New Canaan and in Darien and in Fairfield County, it was dependent on the number of bedrooms that would, the extent of your septic.
Right.
It's the septic, you're saying.
Yeah, yes,
But
exactly.
he's
But
compliant.
he's compliant with the.
I understand he's complying, but that's why I asked the question, did everybody on the ZBA go over and look at the property prior to the fact that they cut the trees and everything were cut this week, which, by the way, they did a nice job cutting them. I guess what I'm saying is if you go over to the property and walk the property, you don't have to walk too many feet when you walk the distance of the width and the, but right now, the Talmadge Hill traffic coming up to South Avenue is unbelievable, and there's not gonna be any room for the people that buy the houses that you're building. There's not gonna be any room for them
Can
to
you
do
talk to
anything.
the microphone?
Pardon
I
me?
believe everyone here is familiar with the property. I went by it just yesterday
Yes.
4 times.
Did you
I
get
live
out
right
and
near-
walk?
I've gotten out at that property
I
previous
wouldn't-
to the trees being cut down. I've gotten property.
So, but have you walked the property?
Yes, previous to the
And
trees.
does
cut down.
everybody, is that a requirement of ZBA? It
That's
used to
not,
be.
that's not it's not a legal requirement, but you know, everyone here generally does that and they're familiar with that.
Okay, well,
property.
that's
It's a
the
very-
only question I have. If everybody here in good conscience has walked that property and sees where the stream is and sees how far the actual building will come to that stream, notwithstanding the fact that he has all the dots and the Ts, and he's done a nice job, but he, his wife were nice enough to come over and say hello to me after the fact. But I just can't imagine anybody in good conscience walking those paths and wanting to put up 2 houses and one is a rental. And is there gonna be something, if they get approved, that says that they can never have more than X number of people inhabit that rental?
Ma'am, I don't believe that's a requirement, there's a number of occupants. It's a three residents is there now. They're sticking with the 3 residents.
Mr.
As if they were gonna apply a 4th, there was an issue.
But
This is not right.
here's what we're getting at. Everybody is taking all the rules and you're
Massage.
trying to work with them and you're massaging them. But the real world is you're gonna have kids in there galore or whoever.
For rental, because
And a
nobody
rental.
else is gonna want.
And you're gonna have all this traffic and you're gonna have septic problems. Our septic system is bigger than this whole lot. Right across the street. Bigger than this
And
whole
we have
lot.
2 systems. We have one for one outbuilding and one for our major house.
We don't,
I-
the
I
Board of
agree
Health
with that.
decides on a septic system. I'm not no one on this board, I think, is an engineer in drainage. You know, they're public health, but they're going to have to get this, their
I
septic's gonna have to get
understand
approved by
all
the
that.
Board of Health.
So that's why I'm just focusing on 2 things. The real world is we got a traffic problem of huge proportions, which has not been addressed by the gentleman. Oh, they're vacant. Hello? If you had, there's 6 bedrooms and 2.5 baths or something like that, that's what I heard. I mean, hello, and those 2 little houses, that's craziness on that narrow lot.
Hon,
And
I think
stay
we-
here all night. I'm not gonna listen.
I
to all
think we
this.
did hear from them, though. They did address the fact that based on the 3-family home situation here, 1 being 2-family, 1 being
I
single
doubt
family,
that ever was the
that
case.
that peak hour would be what they would look at and how much it would require at least 100 users going in and out of the property in aggregate for them to have to do a traffic study. So nothing here with their plan is triggering the traffic study. Certainly, we appreciate your concern. I think traffic in town in general has gotten worse, so I appreciate your concern from that. But unfortunately, there isn't anything that is requiring them to do anything more than they've already done as far as trying to meet and improve sightlines.
Why would you want to
Jack,
put
listen.
a rental home or
He
home?
says it's not a rental home.
It does, whether it's rental or not, I don't, the question is the number of units. It's,
No, I don't agree with you. Luke, may I call you Luke?
you can
I'm
call it
always-
whatever you want. Ma'am.
I want to tell you, you said you don't see any rationale there. That's not true. Depending on the number of people that live there, do you think they're going to be limited to a 2-car garage? If you have that many bedrooms, are you going to say that you can never have more than 2 cars on the property? I mean, there's so many things that you all aren't able to look at, because I know you have to look at the law, because I know I'm a lawyer. But the truth of the matter is, from a practical point of view, what's going to happen to that area, in my opinion, is really not good. I mean, already with coming off the Merritt, getting back on the Merritt, and having all that congestion on exit 37, and then you put in 2 more houses with that number of people that maximize the number of people that could be there. I mean, I just can't even imagine it. If you've been to the site and you all approve it and think it's the right thing to do, and this is a nice gentleman, he came to my house, he was well-mannered, his wife is lovely. I have nothing about that.
We're
I'm
not
just
saying,
telling you it's gonna be a problem.
we're not saying we like it or dislike it. We're saying we're limited to what the law says we grant them and deny them based on whether or not there's plenty of projects that come before us that
But
we
you do
say,
have some discretion.
that there's plenty of projects come before them and that we look at and we say, well, this isn't, like maybe the perfect world, but does the law allow it is our question.
Well, you touched on the septic. That potentially could be huge if you allow that number of bathrooms and bedrooms.
Well, if the Board of Health thinks that the
Okay, just let
septic
me do
doesn't
it.
fit, they'd
Let's
have to
go.
put a new septic
He's
in.
gonna
And I
get a
assume-
building permit.
And I
which
assume
is
they'd
gonna
have to,
address it.
assume they'd come back to us and they'd need to get a different variance if they had to move the septic for the whole house. So
Well, you guys gotta make the decision. Alls we're trying to do is give you what we know.
We
I lived
appreciate
there
that.
50
And we
years.
lived in our house, I want to say, we've lived in our house since June 1st of 1968. And we've changed it a million times, but I
That's
mean,
how we know all the
we know
famous
that's the
people.
area.
No, we appreciate everyone coming here.
And you don't have to.
Strongly, consider everyone's comments. Usually we don't have any butters come and speak on an application. So when people come and speak, it's incredibly important to us. It's important to you, and we're all residents of the town and we're all familiar with the area. I live at the intersection of Lapham Road and Old Stanford Road. I can't get on my driveway in the morning anymore. I mean, the traffic backs up past my house in the
Well-
Merritt. We're all aware of this
But I
project in town, but the whether or not this proposal fits with the
The legal
zoning
constraints.
is what we're constrained.
I
to.
But I
guess
do
the
think
question is, excuse me, we were never notified, so you know.
We were not told, we did not get any kind of mailing. The only way we happened to know that this was going on is because our neighbor was nice enough to put in our mailbox while we were away that, to tell us that this was going on. And we were in Florida at the time where we spent the winter. And so I called right away to find out, and I called every one of the departments. And I'll tell you, I mean, to try to do a project where you are pushing the edge of the envelope in every single solitary item.
Which you all brought up.
Well, they had to, because they couldn't
That's
be
it, that's your
approved.
rule, okay? But that's you know the facts. So the point
I mean,
is,
that's a different situation than somebody, I mean, did many of these things over here in Greenwich, Darien and Ridgefield and so forth. It's one thing if you're asking for a couple of little things at ZBA, but when you're asking really to reconstruct the requirements for what you're trying to do, that's something else. And I wish this young man the best, because I think that he seems like a lovely man and he probably would do it the right way. But
Ma'am, they initially were asking for quite a few things and they've come down to asking for 160 square foot coverage variance. I asked about the size of the garage, because if they could make the garage any smaller, I'd say, you know, can you make the garage smaller? But it's already smaller than what we normally see. I mean, so the only thing they're asking us for is they're saying, we're going to be increasing the front setbacks, reducing the number of stories. Will you give us 160 square feet essentially? 160 square feet is, it's not, it's so, they've come down so much. I mean, they started with asking for, they were gonna increase the coverage in the setback 785 square feet. I mean, this plan, we're
I
on the third
understand,
permutation.
I heard the presentation. I think the attorney here did a lovely job. I really do.
no
So I
neighbor,
hear it.
excuse me,
I'm
no
just-
neighbor is in favor of this. Zero. You have nobody in town that's in favor of this project.
And I'm
So-
saying we're constrained to what the
No,
law
wait, Jack, please.
says.
I don't wanna
What
spend
concerns
all
me is
night
that the
here.
notice, Sarah did
I'm
notice.
just telling you what's gonna happen. And what's really gonna happen is when the septic goes crazy, and it could be when you walk down there and you saw the stream and the creek, and you know what the wetlands are down there, and you know what the drop is from South Avenue downtown, all the way down to the creek. When that septic goes, or anything, you know what it's gonna do? It's not just gonna mess up the whole situation in New Canaan. You're gonna pull Darien into it,
Man,
because at that
if
point.
we don't hear, the septic's gonna need its own permit. I don't know the appeal process for that, but if you wanted to appeal that, whatever the appeal
No,
process
I'm
is,
not
I assume
appealing
you would,
anything.
but I
I'm just
don't.
trying to help
But if
you
they
all,
put a
really.
septic
Make
in
an
that
intelligent
doesn't
decision.
comply, they come back to us, just as if they will say, well, we can't build this wall here, we need to move the footprint.
No,
They haven't come back.
And part of the reason they're asking for this variance is to ensure that the septic is placed in the right way with the right buffer zone, right? So, yeah, okay.
So I'm nothing but the best.
No,
Thank you.
truly, I do. But I
Just,
really
just to
think,
clarify for everyone in the process of this, you know, we ask you to provide your comments, and if there are any questions that the applicant could answer afterwards, we're happy to take those in. The board, you are not required to address their comments in particular. If there are any specific questions, those can always be directed towards me. I don't recommend this back and forth.
So,
So we should just take your comment. If you have anything else you would like to say, the board is
you're
happy to hear
attorney.
that. I am not.
no, I didn't think so.
ma'am,
That's
you
okay.
just raised one question about knocking notes. Sarah, did you get all the cards back? Everyone got notice?
Correct. I think I've actually spoken on the phone with you. I believe you called my office back in November, December, when this first application was heard. I believe we
No, I did
spoke.
not, because I didn't get the information until in the middle.
Yes, it was
of-
it was
No,
after
I
the
got it
fact.
in
Yeah.
February
Okay.
from my neighbor.
But Sarah, did the certified mailings go?
Correct. I
So everyone
received-
got the certified mail cards?
I did not, and you did not have one with our initial on it because we did not get one.
So all we're required to receive is proof
Yeah,
that
proof of
it
mailing.
was handed to the post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need proof
Well,
of.
you have to prove that to me because we did not get
What
it.
she has, they have all the slips saying that when you,
That it
when you
was
stamp
stamped.
it, they have all the slips.
So I have the,
Well, why didn't I? Didn't you-
I don't know, maybe you weren't there, we don't know, maybe you
Well,
didn't sign for it, I don't know, but the requirement isn't you received it, the requirement is that they sent it to you.
Well, I did not receive.
Do you
it.
have any, if you have any new comments, we'd like to hear them, and then again, I'm sure they'll respond
Yes,
to your
there are.
questions.
No, I
Okay.
have nothing else to say. I just want to say before I leave, because we're gonna go, that you are doing a great job. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for the town of New Canaan and Darien. But I do foresee, honestly, that you're gonna have major problems someplace in New Canaan and Darien with this project if it goes through.
We appreciate again, and we appreciate
welcome.
everyone coming here, and we appreciate your
Well,
comments.
Just one editorial, Richard.
If we don't need, if it relates to the lot, we're here, if
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't relate to it,
Richard was more right than wrong and gone about building on the foundation plan or whatever. when these guys get all done, they'll wish they built one nice house, got a nice profit,
What,
and you wouldn't have broken changed everything around and gotten into the mess that they're gonna get into.
okay, well, that's,
And he'll walk away with something in his pocket.
whether or not they make money off it or not is not what we're evaluating. If you have questions related to zoning,
It's all right.
we'll hear them.
Look, you're doing a great job, but this is a very, very, very complicated thing. And especially when you're looking at everything having to be changed or given a variance for. And that in itself, after a while, you say, are we going down the right path and we gotta change everything?
Mr. Karcher, we appreciate that and thank you. If you have anything.
Look, I only
I'm
wish you
sure-
the best.
We're gonna listen to your neighbors now, assuming you said everything you wanna say.
I wish you the best. I'm
Okay.
trying to help you.
Who, assume there's other people here, anyone else, opposed to the application? Can you try to limit your comments to those related to, the zoning and the new the amended application they submitted?
Yes.
Thank you. And your name is?
Elizabeth Sandor,
And you are?
Donald Sandor.
Thank you for coming tonight. And
we're
your
at
address?
23 Talmadge Hill Road.
Yeah, again, we appreciate everyone's feedback.
I think we want to probably just start by asking if you have read our opposition and seen the photograph or the
silhouettes.
silhouettes that we have added and the signatures that we've added. Did everybody get to see that?
We submitted it. It was posted on the site
They were
today.
received this morning and posted on the
Yeah,
town's
but we
website.
can ask for evidence of that.
Ma'am, we're trying to conduct a meeting here. You're an attorney. You should understand that. So if we can please let your neighbors speak.
Sarah, can you tell me what they're labeled on the website?
Sure, so it's letters in response to the application. I would share my screen, but my laptop, the screen has broken in the middle of this meeting, so I'm unable to share them, unfortunately.
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, I see
here.
the ones from Dan on the website.
Okay.
So
so
letters in
there's-
response to the application,
Okay, it's not by
it's,
date.
they're labeled based on the names of the people submitted and the dates. There are 2 letters.
Okay, I see them now. Do you see them? Do you want to share my screen?
Yeah. See.
Okay, so do you want to, go through your comments you have regarding the, zoning concerns that you have?
Right. That's why we posted it. We thought you might have read it before the meeting, but if you didn't have time, we can go over that now if you'd like.
I haven't, I printed it out before this was posted today, so if you want to go through your presentation, I think everyone on here will take the time, you took the time to put it together.
Sure. Can you put them up on the screen?
My screen is broken.
Okay.
Well, actually, I
There-
think I started the document. If you look in the, do you have it
Want
up?
me to, could I screen share from an iPad?
So this iPad is connected to an app that does not screen share. I can try to join via this iPad, but. it's
Okay,
going to take-
while she's trying to pull up your pictures, why don't you go through the narrative?
Yeah, I think the first thing I touched on in that document, or we touched on, is the definition of, nonconformity. And because they're protected by nonconformity, they can't get any more nonconformant when they do anything to that lot, right? And based on that, I associated that, I'm trying to do it from memory. I associated that with the definitions that are in the actual zoning regulations, having to do with what a story is and the minimum number of stories, or the maximum number of stories you can have, which is 2.5 for that particular zone, a 2-acre residential. The definition of a story, of course, includes basements. And further, there's a definition of basements. A walkout basement is definitely a basement, as opposed to a cellar, which is more of a hole in the ground type of deal. And that's clearly shown. I don't have the document with me, but it's shown. They show a little line going through the side cross section of the basement. You can walk out. Obviously, they have garages down there, and this is definitely a walkout basement. So that counts as a story. Given that, their structure is gonna be 3.5 stories, which is non-compliant. It's making it more non-compliant. The current grandfathered in or the current non-compliant, legally non-compliant property is only, I think it's only 2.5 or 1.5. Or the small house in the north is 1.5 or something like that.
You're asking how many stories? What is the
Yeah, how many
existing house?
stories was the north house? Is
The
the
existing,
short.
the existing one is technically 3 stories because of how the basement is.
Because it has a basement.
I mean, because of the cellar, not.
It's not a basement, so it's
That's
it's
what I'm
only a
saying, cellar,
cellar,
yeah.
so it's not really,
That's not really, doesn't really
That's-
count as a story.
according to the
Zoning
regulations, a cellar is not a story. Is.
And I'm saying because of how it's graded, they're saying it's not a cellar.
The new proposed structure is
Is a
a
basement.
basement. So that adds a story. So that makes it 3.5 stories.
Well, they're saying it's not based on their grade calculations.
No, if it's greater than 50% of the average grade of the basement, and it definitely is because that grade happens to be very sharp, which they've mentioned several times. There's no way it's not 50% above.
So your concern is that the new one at 985 could be, in fact, 3 stories, not 2.5 stories.
They both are. The one in the south, what's the address for the one?
I mean, their surveyor has calculated these, and I'm sure they'll come up and they'll address this again, but their surveyor has turned based on the finished grades. It's going to be 2.5 and 2.5. Because if they built something that was 3 stories, then it wouldn't be in compliance with their building permit because they would then built a non-conforming structure.
They are building a non-conforming structure. That is definitely a basement. It says on the plan, basement, doesn't say cellar on that plan. If you look at their floor plan that they submitted, it says basement. Both of them say
Okay,
basement.
well, I'm sure they'll address that point, but they're gonna need a certificate of occupancy at the end, which would confirm compliance with the zoning. So if they get a permission here, they're asking for 2.5 stories, and they build 3 stories because their grades are off or something like that, or the building comes out taller, they'd have to be back for another variance.
But the building would already have been built. It should be stopped now, given that they're breaking that they're being more non-conformant by making a 3.5 story house. Because that is definitely a basement.
Well,
Definitely
like,
counts as a story.
if their calculations is wrong, that's, I guess, and they built it, and their engineer says you built it incorrect to your plans, that's,
They won't get it.
I mean, they won't get a CO.
They won't get a CO after the house is built. I'm talking about now. I'm bringing this to your attention now because this is an issue. They're
Okay,
definitely breaking the conformity of this property by making it 3.5 stories tall. And one of the stories is the basement, and that has to be approved by a zoning inspector, has to look at the grades and examine all of that and decide where the average grade is, or whether or not this is or isn't the basement. Has that been done?
Sarah, is that a question you can answer?
Sure, so we have reviewed the plan submitted by the applicant multiple times as recently as today after receiving the letter from the Sandors. It is not violating the definition of a story. The plan may be mislabeled as a basement. We've run the numbers multiple times. We have a copy of us running the numbers versus the applicant running the numbers. We have no concern that it's violating the story definition. And to your point, if they miscalculated these numbers with any building that's constructed in the town of New Canaan, if they did their numbers wrong and it comes up during a CO process, it's on them to correct it. But as of now, their plans are compliant.
How are they gonna lop off a story after
well,
they built the house?
we've had issues like that come up in the past where some people do things without permission. And we evaluate those the same as if they came now. We'd say, would we have approved it now? Would we have approved a 3-story structure there? And then we would evaluate. There would be obviously a huge risk to them because they could be removing the structure if they're taking the story off.
Take it
Yeah,
down.
staff does
Exactly.
not have concern that they are
Yeah,
violating.
that's-
that.
So
They
it's
have
not a violation, it's a matter of definition. Is it actually a story?
And they're saying according to
We do this daily.
according to Sarah's review of the plans and their surveyor's review of the plans, it's not a story. I mean, they'll, I'm sure, respond to this in more detail, but that concern has already been looked at, and we appreciate it, because that's a concern we all have, is especially if you look at the photographs from the back, is this really 3 stories? So
Yeah.
as Sarah said, they've gone through these grade calculations and things multiple times, and it's a very valid point. I think it's a question probably everyone on this board has had. When you look at it from the back, you know, on the renderings, I mean, I can understand how someone could look at this and say, you know, this looks like 3 stories, you know, but it's based on the grades and the way they've measured it with the ground level as it is, as long as they build it according to plans.
Especially
They
the
fit within the
two-family.
definition.
Right. Okay, so also come back to Richard's point about the building on the existing foundation. Given that, I can't see it, I mean, they're protected by the non-conformity, they're legally non-compliant. So they could actually build on the existing foundation plans. The question was whether they could do the septic or any other thing. They might have to bring up to code, I guess, even though they're protected to some degree by non-compliance or non-conformity. So given that you're going to be adding 11, there's 11 bedrooms in the new proposals for 2 houses, you have septic system that can support that in the space. I can't see how you would not be able to build on the existing foundation and put a septic system into support. And it is based on the number of bedrooms. All septic systems are based on the number of bedrooms in the house.
Correct.
It's the number of people pooping. So that would indicate, that would also be a design decision, depending on how big you make it. And as far as the square footage is concerned, you have a 700 square foot footprint. If you have 2 stories, you have a 1,400 square foot house. I think our first house was 1,400 square feet. Well, my daughter lives in Manhattan. She'd love to have 1,400 square feet.
All right, go
But
ahead.
anyway, I don't know what the next.
Well, on that line, since we're there, we put in a shadow of the existing house and the house as it is to be built, and you can see
Silhouette.
a silhouette. Thank you.
So sorry to interrupt. Tori on Zoom, if you stop sharing your screen, I should be able to share my screen at this point.
That's, I guess, the last picture.
All right. Oops.
We're trying to work that out, Sandy.
Yep. All right, you're gonna have to continue. I can't, I'm gonna have.
So I think we've all, I mean, I have the silhouette. Has everyone seen the silhouette? The silhouette?
That's not the silhouette.
No, that's not.
No.
It's from our document. It's in the
Oh,
document.
that image.
Yeah,
I have a very.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The differences in what's there now and what is being proposed is quite large.
It's dramatic.
Can I ask how you arose at this type of overlay? What feet, dimensions, et cetera, did you use?
What we did was take the existing house, took a picture of it from the front. That's what you see in silhouette. In Photoshop, you take it and you trace around the outline of the house.
So, I mean, look, that could be manipulated, right? So this isn't an exact figure,
This
like
is-
feet to feet.
Well, assuming you're gonna have 8-foot ceilings, right? That's standard, unless they're gonna have 10-foot ceilings, which makes the whole structure a lot taller. But
I think what
So
she's
based
saying
on
is
the 8-foot
that,
ceiling,
and the 8-foot
these,
ceilings, based on the 8-foot ceilings for the existing house, so you can see the roof line, it's the same as the roof line. And you can see the first story of the house if you line up the windows. And the top of each.
and
end
this
of
is
the
only
window.
the front. This doesn't show the back where the
Right.
basement is, which is another full level.
I mean,
Right.
I think we appreciate what you're trying to do here, but I think what Jessica is saying is, how do you determine in your overlay the height of the existing house?
Correct.
We had the
You
height of
trace
the existing house.
Right, you trace it,
We were given
Trace-
those during the first
Right.
meetings, the
Okay.
height of the
I think this will be a good point for the applicant to address when they provide feedback after public comment.
So height,
This was proportionally sized. I mean, it was sized from a photograph. You take the photograph itself and size it proportionally, overlay it.
Right, I mean,
The stories.
I think it'll be a good question for them to address.
I think even though it's not necessarily, we can't rely on it, or at least I can't rely on it being exact. It's some perspective because I've been working off of the photos that have been provided along with the schematics that have been provided and tried to visualize. So actually, I appreciate you putting this together.
Yep.
Do you want to go back to your,
I'm looking for it.
Sarah, can you go to the first, the letter sent, which would be the second document?
Sure, so I can unfortunately only share photos, so I will have to screenshot. So
Okay.
if there's like a figure in particular or something.
He's trying to go through his points. Oh, he's got it, never mind.
Right. Basement. Right. Well, we touched on the petition already. Regarding the petition opposed to the project, 100% of the neighbors
If
canvassed.
Sarah, could you bring the petition up?
That's an image, yeah. PDF.
Yeah, so,
So I know you were talking about the butter zone. And I went around to the neighbors and met some of my neighbors that I don't often see. And I got 100% of every door that I knocked on that was surprised to see what was going in and signed. So that's every single neighbor from the Merritt Parkway to the house being built. That is 2 neighbors on, 3 neighbors on Dew Lane, 2 neighbors on, what's that, Charter Oak?
Yeah, I think so.
And as soon as you go on to Talmadge Hill Road, I went all the way up to the church. And every home that I knocked on signed. There are 3 homes on Talmadge Hill that I couldn't get because they weren't home. And 1 on, let's see, Charter Oak that wasn't home. Every single person that I asked to sign would happily sign it. So it's not just the Karchers who did sign, but everyone in that butter zone
As opposed to.
is opposed to this building. All right, what's next on our list?
Oh, in terms of the hardship based on the steepness of the lot, building on the steepness of a lot. We built into a hill, we built into a steep lot.
As they were showing the grades and the orange and the reds, ours was the other house on
And
one
it
of the
had
oranges
orange
and
in
the reds.
So
And it's
in
not,
terms of the expense of a house, when you're building it, I happen to come from a family of builders. My father was an architect, my brothers are builders. I built houses with them. Grandfathers built the church we were married in. So I understand building and construction and the costs associated with it since we actually built our own house into a hill. After you dig that foundation, dig the hole, and pour the foundation, everything from that point up has nothing to do with the topology of the land. Everything has to do with the choices you make in the design, number of bedrooms affecting the septic system. Of course, in this case, where you put the driveway in the rear, causing you to have to put the retaining walls and worry about traffic, as opposed to putting the driveway in the front where it is currently and not building such a large structure. It seems to me that the structure they're trying to build is designed for a different lot. If they wanted to build a structure like that, they shouldn't have bought this lot, basically. Right? They had other lots. They talked about the other lots that are more level to the right in that diagram they had. They should have bought one of those lots if they wanted to build a big.
all right, let's keep going. It's late. Everybody's tired. I'm sorry, we're trying to get through.
No,
no,
we're
it's
listening.
important that, we let everyone say what they want. We're all listening.
So yeah, so I did put a pie chart in there showing the cost of building a new custom home, and not surprisingly, most of the cost is for interior finishes. And that includes if you have 2 kitchens, if you're building a 2-family home, a lot of expense goes into building a finished kitchen. The same with all those finished bathrooms that they have, 11 of them, I think, for both houses. all the copper, all the special requirements for electrical, the new, NEC codes. Anyway, that's where most of the cost comes from. And this is where what I think is the hardship is self-imposed at this point, because they don't have to build something so large. They don't have to build the driveway in the back. They could put it in the front. They wouldn't need all those retaining walls. They would need some, maybe, but not that many. And also, when we built our house, the cost of the retaining walls, we have a 75-foot retaining wall, 2 retaining walls that are more than 6 feet tall. It's about 5% of the total cost of our house. So it's not a significant portion of the total cost of the house. What was the other?
Do you have source references for your pie chart, like where you would have come up with those percentages or data points?
You can just search on, you can go to a search.
I'm asking you if you relied on anything.
Where did you go to your pie?
I just did a search and I took the pie chart. They all look the same. They all have the same, just about 30% for almost all of
So
them.
just through a search engine is
Just
how
through
you,
a search
okay.
engine, but I already know.
You can't cite to which
Actually, I
particular
can cite
reference
our
was
own
used,
house, given the cost of our own house,
which was built when.
built in terms of percentage cost, most of the expense goes into
She wants to know
fixtures.
where you got this.
I'm trying to look for current data to rely on this because it's great to have the representations and your feedback, but I'm very source-driven,
So-
data-driven.
Right.
I'd like to know if there were particular websites or information you looked at to get your pie chart
Well, I mean,
substantiated.
you can look at any of the, what are some of the home shows? You can look at any site that shows this
Okay.
information. I can't direct you to one. I can tell you from personal experience after building our own house, what the percentages.
She wants to
come
know
out.
where you got
Jessica, I
that.
believe.
Where
you
I got
answered
that
the
chart.
question. I think the
So-
question was answered.
In terms of the current, it's percentage wise, so it doesn't matter. about
Okay. Do
inflation.
you have anything else related to the zoning you'd like to bring up?
Just give me a moment. It does say in the document, the preamble of the zoning document, that you need to maintain the aesthetics of properties and that the property value has to be maintained based on the decisions. And that's about making structures that are in keeping with a particular neighborhood. And not diminish the beauty of the entire town, quoting from the document. And consequently, the values of the property might go down. And it seems pretty obvious that all the people who signed the petition feel the exact same way. The property value is going to go down, and that is not conforming to what the neighborhood should look like. It's not conforming to the aesthetic of the neighborhood, that particular design, especially the 2-family design. It's not conforming to the aesthetics of the neighborhood and will negatively impact the value of our property.
We appreciate your comments and everyone's comments.
Is there any other bullet point you want? Okay. Thank you for hearing us. I hope that you will take the opportunity to read the rest. And we don't want to waste any more of your time.
No, you're not wasting it.
Wasting it.
No, this isn't for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for the
very
time you
much.
put into your effort. Is there anyone else here against the application?
And I can do screenshots if you happen to be on the Zoom. You may have an easier time than me, but I can through screenshots if there's something in particular.
Page 3. Good evening. My name is Tim Dan. I live at 986 South Avenue, which is the property closest to this project. It's directly across the street. The house was built in 1790, and back then they didn't have setback rules. So as you can imagine, I'm fairly close to South Ave, and as a result, fairly close to this proposed project. I'm going to be as brief as possible because I know you're late, and I've submitted materials earlier that, again, I would appreciate if you took the time to read them. My main objection is, and I'm thinking along the lines of Board Member Caratu, that what he's proposing here is just way too much. He's trying to take advantage of an existing two-family structure and a one-family structure to repeat that and put up two buildings, two-family and one family. I've lived there 30 years and it hasn't been a two-family living in that residence in my entire time there. The existing structures have 4 bedrooms total and 2 baths. As you know, he's going to total of 8 bedrooms, 9 baths, and 3 half baths. Pardon me, 9 bedrooms, 8 full baths, and 3 half baths. What I put up in front of you is from his materials. It shows the footprint of the proposed structures. You can see the label Dan on the right is my residence directly across the street. To the left of his proposal are the Sandors, who spoke to you earlier. And down at the bottom right is 2 Dew Lane where the Karchers live. So those 2 structures that you see, the two-family structure has a length from south to north of 76 feet, again, from his documents. And the single-family structure, including the garage, has a south to north dimension of 60.5 feet. So that's a total of 136 feet or so of building right on South Ave, right in my family, my son's bedroom, my guest bedroom, that we'll have the pleasure of looking at. If you could go to page 4. Oh, literally it'll be 5 more minutes, just to give you some degree of hope. So I did an outline of what the proposed structures will look like versus what's there now. And the existing structure to the north, which is on the right, has a ground, this is the front on South Ave, ground to ridge line of 23 feet. And the structures that he's putting up, as you've heard earlier, including the cupola, will be pushing, I think, 35 feet, the attorney said. The actual ridge line, as I read from his documents, are 30 feet and change. It says 30 feet 2. I don't know if that's 2 inches or 30.2 feet, but just over 30 feet, which is what I've depicted here. As you can see, the distance between the 2 buildings is something of the order of 23 feet, to be primarily occupied by 2 patios. My take on this is this is unwise from a building perspective. I'm not a builder, so of course you will discount that statement immediately. But I can't imagine anyone's going to want to cozy up to this structure on a very busy South Ave, as you've heard, Talmadge Hill as well. I don't think he's going to sell these properties. I don't know why. My first thought is he bought this lot for $750,000, which is cheap in New Canaan for a building lot. Granted, it's a challenging lot, but it is what it is. I think he would do well financially just to put up 1 single family, or even better, 2 single family. But he wants to really shoot the moon and do 3 residences, because if he can sell them, that'll be a huge home run. I don't think he's going to sell. That's up, as you said, that's up to him to decide. So are you able to do the last page? So page 6.
Oh, page 6.
I'm sorry?
Page 6, not
Yes.
page 5.
Yeah. So as you've heard, this is a very tricky traffic area. In the course of my living there, I've been first on the scene, literally first on the scene of 4 serious accidents. This is the most recent one. It was October 1st of 2024, just last fall. Cars heading south on South Avenue, there's a turn to the left. For whatever reasons, they don't catch the turn. Are they distracted? Probably, but many people are these days. And as you see, this car crashed into the tree immediately in front of the building. So that's just the South Avenue traffic. Again, we've been first on the scene of 4 accidents, and they're traumatic for me because I'm not an EMT and I don't know what to do. And these folks spoke Spanish, not English. So that was another challenge. One vehicle, which I don't have pictures of, actually young man who actually flipped the vehicle. It was a minivan and was on its roof. So that's South Ave. The intersection with Talmadge Hill and South, many of you have been there, coming up, trying to make a left or a right on South Avenue. very, very tricky. There's got to be 1 or 2 accidents a month there. That happens all the time on repeat. The 2-family structure, as you've seen, will have a driveway on Talmadge Hill Road. You know, I understand they're going to try to improve the grade so that the sight lines of folks heading south on South Avenue, making a right turn on Talmadge Hill, you know, might have some sense that, oh, somebody's coming, trying to exit their driveway. I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but there's not a lot of time there. And if you're exiting that driveway, wanting to turn left on Talmadge Hill during a traffic period in the morning or in the evening, it's going to be very challenging, to say the least, right? You have to avoid people turning right onto Talmadge Hill, and you have to have somebody who's in the line heading west on Talmadge Hill to South Ave have the grace to let you in. So those are my concerns. I've met with Dan many times. He's a good guy for sure. I don't think he's tremendously experienced, and certainly not in this area. I think the project that he's designing belongs in a dense area, not in a 2-acre zone, single family owned properties. That's my objection to it. So thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Ma'am, if you have anything new related to the zoning, we'll give you a brief moment, but please keep it please keep your concern to the zoning issues.
Oh, what this is?
So if you come up, we'll let you, if you have a new concern regarding zoning, but.
I just wanted to make one comment. I'd like to sit down and take a seat. You all, no one seems to be talking about the train station down at the bottom of Talmadge Hill Road, which is a part of the Darien train system. And that's another reason why the traffic is so terrible in the mornings and the afternoons. So, I mean, I think when you add South Avenue and you add the curves, the two bad curves, that, and also the train station, it seems like to me it's a sort of a possibility for disaster.
Okay. Is there anyone else here against the application? And there's still no one in favor of the application, okay. Does the applicant want to come up and answer the questions that the neighbors raised?
Yes, thank you. Did I interrupt someone? I apologize. I thought I heard something. Oh, it's been behind me. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Andrea Gomes, counsel for the applicant. It is getting late, but I want to make sure I address everything. So I'm just kind of going to go through some of those comments. So there was a request for details on the number of bedrooms. There are a total of 4 bedrooms currently on the site, 2 bedrooms in each structure. There will be, we're obviously reworking the structures. There are a total of 9 bedrooms proposed for the revised plan. So 3 bedrooms in each unit. That was a question. There was a suggestion, and I'm starting, of course, with the Karcher's comments. There was a suggestion from Mr. and Mrs. Karcher on building one big home. And obviously I'm speaking a little bit off the cuff because we haven't designed the site to have one big home. Friendly reminder to the commission, we have a pre-existing non-conforming use for 3 structures, but we'd be before this commission anyway, building one big home, right? Because if we were building one big home, you saw the colored visual that we had, we'd still have to be within the front setback, and we'd be asking for, likely, again, hypothetically speaking, greater coverage within the front setback to accommodate that. So we'd be back here anyway. We'd need a variance anyway, likely with a one big home. There was and that's, again, putting aside the fact that it would not be feasible on this site to build just one home. There was a question about rental versus sale. I mean this respectfully, zoning authorities are not allowed to regulate rental versus sale. We do note in our application materials that these will be for sale condominiums, but again, that's not something that's subject to regulation by any zoning authority. There was a comment from the Karchers that there are absolutely no neighbors in favor. We did submit into the record, I believe we have one letter from a neighbor, not directly near our site, but certainly close to our site. And then we have another neighbor who signed a petition that we submitted on where they were from Dew Lane.
Yeah, I think in total, yes, in total, we have
I believe it's 10. I believe
Yes,
you have
so
10.
that's in addition to the prior.
Yeah, the prior submission, and 2 new submissions, from this meeting.
Yes, and so I just want to put that, we did submit that into the record. Regarding proof of mailing, Ms. Carey is correct. The law is clear that you just need to show that you submitted the materials to the post office, which we did submit to proof of mailing. And in any event, personal notice, which is what mailing is waived by appearing and speaking at the hearing. So we are all set on proof of mailing. Now, the Sandors had a number of comments as well. There was a bit of an exchange regarding height as to stories. Again, we stand by our calculation as confirmed by our team, as confirmed by our surveyor, as confirmed by town staff. If the board wants a little bit more of a walkthrough on how we arrived at the story calculation here of 2.5 for each of the proposed structures, we can certainly ask our PE who's also looked at these materials to go through that analysis, because the regulations are a little bit unusual, but we maintain we're proposing 2.5 stories, and then the existing two-family structure to the north is non-compliant. And again, just to put kind of a logical lens, if you will, on this whole discussion regarding height, we're not asking for a height variance. So let's say hypothetically we got to building permit and the building official said, hey, you've actually got a building here that's not in compliance with the zoning regulations. You can't pass go, you can't collect $200. When you get back before the board in one way or another, having to revise the plans to bring the height down. So I'll pause there and see if the board does want that walkthrough regarding height. I see board member Caratu saying no.
No, Rich Caratu, for my personal, I'm relying on the building code and the building inspector, and it's not in our.
Just to be
scope.
clear, it's all zoning. It has nothing to do with the building official or
Correct.
building
Right.
code. It's all based on zoning.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
then
correct. And
rely on
I-
staff that calculation.
I misspoke. So if zoning doesn't sign off by the time it goes to building, then we don't get building. That's why I misspoke
Right.
there. I
So
conflated a couple
they
of words.
referenced that one of the plans shows the ground floor as a basement. Which plan is that?
Justin, would you mind,
I can speak,
Oh,
to that.
actually, okay.
I can speak to that. They are correct. On the plan, it is just a label that says basement to just generally describe what the area is, but it is in fact meets the definition of a cellar in the New Canaan zoning regulations. So that
Can
was,
you pull up that plan though?
sure.
Tori, would you pull up that plan?
No mistake.
Yeah, so is this the plan that says basement?
Yes, yes.
Yep, it says basement, but then there's a separate definition, and certainly I'll let Justin
If
go
you-
through it.
Yeah, if you'd like, we can go through the,
So this is on the architectural renderings, not on the plans.
not on the civil plans, no.
So the plans don't have a notation either way.
And I will note, so you see this a lot when we're doing administrative permits, because we have a lot of lots in New Canaan that build walkout basements and whatnot. And we see this 99% of the time, where on the architectural plans, they're labeling it as a basement because that's just the common term. We rarely see it labeled as a cellar, and frankly, I didn't even notice that it said basement because we were going straight to calculating whether it meets the definition or not, because the engineers are the ones that are doing those calculations, so the architects likely aren't even aware that we would call this a cellar. So
Yeah,
for us, it was,
I think we understand that point, whether or not it's on this or not. I mean, we could always, as a condition, say that this is, a cell. We're not approving a basement here, on this. Assuming the board votes to approve it,
Correct.
so that no one says, well, you approved a basement.
And we can always correct that on the plans.
Yeah,
should the board
I'm saying,
approve, it's not a problem.
that's the type of thing that could be corrected to make people more comfortable that there's not another floor that's gonna be thrown in here. Okay,
Correct, Mr. Chairman. Okay, with that, I'm gonna read the room and say there's probably no further discussion needed on the height definition, but of course, if the board has any questions, we can go through it in more
do you have
detail.
an overlay of the two houses?
I'm sorry?
Like an overlay Like they add an overlay, to an overlay?
And that actually brings me to my following point. Respectfully, we don't know what scale the Sandors use because as we noted earlier, the surveyor, we did not have the foot height or the height in feet from our surveyor. We had the surveyor gave us the height in stories. So how you could appropriately scale the existing height compared to the proposed height, it's a hypothetical exercise. And I'm not downplaying the effort in any way, shape, or form, but bless you, I would not feel comfortable submitting an overlay to this board as applicant's counsel without that information because it just would not be reliable, correct?
Yeah.
I'm turning.
So
to
you
the
don't have the height in drafts or anything of the existing structure, it's just something that was never done.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't have any issues with the feet, height in feet. It was really the story. So that's what we focused on. And again, I'm not meaning to just go through these, but I just wanted to make sure I'm touching on all the points. Certainly if the board has any questions, pause. There was a question on, or there was a comment from the Sandors on community outreach. And I say this certainly with all due respect, but we have no idea what was communicated to the other neighbors who submitted these material or this signature on this letter. I will note that the letter itself says we oppose 3 residential units on this property. That's
Gave them your plans from your site.
Okay. I think, let's,
It's intolerant, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just making the point for the board that we have signatures in opposition, but we don't know exactly what was represented. And I will just note, it says we oppose three, I'm paraphrasing, 3 residential units on the property. And we'll take that for what it is. The pie chart on development costs, again, I think that's beside the point here. As someone who's currently renovating our house, I wish that's what my pie chart looks like in today's day and age. It's certainly changed. But again, as board member Cardin pointed out, we don't know the source. We certainly don't know that it applies currently, and we don't know that it applies to this property. And in fact, I'm willing to wager it's inaccurate. And then the preamble to the regulations. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, I'm looking at the purposes of the regulations, and section 1.2E says, bringing about the gradual conformity of the uses of lands and buildings to the comprehensive zoning plan set forth in these regulations. So that's also one of the general purposes of the regulations. It's in the first few overall. Again, just moving down to Mr. Dan or Dunn, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. He started his commentary respectfully with it's just way too much. But again, as board member Cardin said, we're in compliance with all of the other regulations in terms of coverage. Our proposal complies with height. Our proposal will comply with all of the other provisions of the regulations. There was a comment from him as well to that it is a challenging lot, which he acknowledged, and a suggestion that we just put up 2 single families. And again, we're talking about the same analysis here, right? If we're putting up 2 single families, again, this is an exercise in hypotheticals because we haven't designed it as such, and putting aside the fact of whether or not it's feasible to do so from a development perspective on site, we'd probably still be back here before the board for a variance because of the restrictions that we've been speaking about. There were a couple of visuals. I'm speaking specifically about the overlay of the blue outline. Same comment as I had before. We don't have the scale, so it's difficult to compare. I'll also say that the overlay does not in any way, shape, or form indicate the fact that the buildings will be pushed back away from the street line or the ample landscaping that will be proposed. So it's not an apples to apples comparison when you're talking about our site. And then regarding traffic. We had a lot of testimony from Mr. Giorlando, who again is the only professional engineer to be testifying in connection with this application regarding what is required here. Is a traffic study required? We confirmed it's not. We heard from Justin that the driveway to the north for the proposed single family has been located as far to the north as possible, away from the intersection in accordance with good traffic engineering practices. We've relocated the secondary driveway or the southerly driveway on Talmadge Hill Road. We've graded the site to improve sight lines. So putting aside what the situation is with traffic in the area currently, we are making it better. And I know that's getting a little bit more into general site plan or zoning approval and not necessarily variance, but I know that this board does look at general impacts to the property as well, which I'll get to in my closing comments. So yes, traffic may be an issue in the area, but we're certainly not exacerbating it. And for all of these reasons, we're making it better. So I'll take a breath there for a moment, Mr. Chairman, and see if the board has any other questions before I provide some closing comments.
Anyone have any questions? No. Okay.
Okay. I've talked you all into a stupor. Okay, so with that, I'd like to start by thanking the board for their time and attention, not only tonight, but these last few months and through these various iterations of the plans. I want to start my final comments by pointing the board back to the zoning regulations, specifically section 8.3C, and I'm looking at subsection 5, which talks about the decision considerations in ruling on a variance application. And I'm paraphrasing here generally, but it provides that the board should find that literal enforcement of the regulations would result in exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship solely with respect to the parcel of land and not as a result of conditions affecting the neighborhood generally. Again, this is paraphrasing. And then it talks about how the board can grant a variance to alleviate the hardship if it's in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations, with consideration for conserving public health, safety, convenience, welfare, and property values. And so that substantial justice will be done and the public safety and welfare secured. Starting first with hardship and unique hardship. We heard at length from Mr. Kelleher today, and then for the rest of the team, frankly, about the unusual shape and size of this parcel with wetlands and a water course taking up much of the site, the very steep grade dropping 20 feet from east to west, and certainly dropping as well from north to south. None of the lots are afflicted with these features in the same way. You saw Mr. Kelleher go through that analysis of saying, okay, this lot has some topography here, but they have a nice flat area of land over here, or they're able to avoid the wetlands here. We just don't have that, and we're constrained, and our property is unique as a result. And when you take those features and combine them with the space needed for retaining walls for any development here, and the space needed for septic systems and stormwater management, as dictated by the various codes, provisions, and standards we've talked about at length during this public hearing, you leave the property owner with less than 10% of buildable area on site here. And that includes the footprints of the existing buildings within the front setback area, pretty close to the street line. Forcing the applicant to build in conformance, or in other words, literal application or forced application of the regulations to this property would result in a building, if you looked at that chart in our earlier slideshow, that would only be 14 feet deep. If you forced us to pull outside of the front setbacks, I'm obviously putting aside the existing footprint in that area, you're talking about a 14-foot strip. It's not feasible, nor is it logical. And nor is forcing the applicant to build new structures in the existing footprints feasible, because doing so, as we discussed, would provide some potential engineering issues, but it would prohibit the applicant from eliminating the existing height nonconformity and from reducing the existing front setback nonconformities as we have proposed. And that's contrary to the policy in this state that you find in all of the case law on these issues about just the general push towards reduction or elimination of nonconformities whenever possible. It's also contrary to that provision in the town of New Canaan zoning regulations about moving things towards bringing about the gradual conformity. And we're moving in that right direction. We could not do so absent this variance here. The board also heard that, and certainly this goes back to the last conversation, I just want to bring it up, that for various reasons, forcing the applicant to build in the existing footprint would render the site unbuildable, given the overall footprint of the site, the topography, the cost of development, and so on. So the punchline, this is a pre-existing non-conforming 3-family use, and it will remain a 3-family use post-development. And this variance approval will enable us to rebuild that same use while also bringing the site into general conformity or gradual conformity, excuse me, as dictated by the regulations, not only as to setbacks and to height, but as to grading and drainage in section 6.4 of the zoning regulations and erosion and sediment control in section 6.5 of the regulations. We cannot achieve these benefits without the requested variance. And frankly, no other plan would achieve the same goals without the variance included for other uses permitted in the zone. I certainly am not speaking for staff, but staff appears to agree given the staff memo that was issued just recently on the revised plans. I want to touch on just quickly, we spoke a lot about at the main meeting, there were a number of cases thrown out. Certainly, I just want to give the board some cases or some facts to think about. We did our research as well. There was a case entitled Simonson. It's a 2011 Superior Court case. And in that case, the court upheld the zoning board's approval of 3 setback variances sought in connection with the redevelopment of an existing single-family home with a new single-family home on the same lot. And it was an rear lot, and about 2/3 of that lot was a pond, a stream, and related wetlands. And the site was also subject to 50-foot setbacks from all lines. So a similar analysis where you're constantly chipping away at the buildable area on the property. And in that case, the court found that the zoning board had 2 independent bases to approve the variance. One, due to the topography and configuration of the site, plus the wetlands and stream on site, and especially given the wetlands and stream on site, and the reduction of existing nonconformities. I'll also note that the court found that deciding to rebuild anew instead of just redeveloping what was already there was not a self-created hardship. And the court made clear that the hardship was created by the regulations themselves, which were passed after the building was constructed. Pointing the court as well to the Chevron case. That's a 1976 Connecticut Supreme Court case. And that was an interesting parcel. It was a triangular piece of commercial property with 40-foot setbacks on all sides, and it was next to a residential zone. And the request for a variance to reduce the setbacks down to 20 feet and for approval of a gas station on this property was approved. The neighbors appealed, and the court found the application of the setbacks created a hardship when 85% of the property would be rendered unbuildable without the requested variance. Again, going back to that same analysis about what we're left when we keep chipping away at unbuildable area on site. Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting, we spoke a little bit about Varillo, and certainly it's a long decision. There's a lot of language in there, but I want to point the board to the facts in Varillo, which are pretty significant. They're significantly different than what we have here. In that case, the applicant was granted 8 separate variances to expand an existing non-conforming structure. There were no topographical issues, no unusual conditions impacting the site. The applicant essentially said, I have an undersized lot and I want to build a bigger home. And one of the things that the court said was that's the same situation that you find on every other property in this area. That's not unique to this property. And as I discussed, that's a little bit different. And then certainly, I believe, Board Member Snyder, it was you during the May hearing, you brought up Morikawa versus Weston. We took a look at that decision. We just wanted to ensure we understood. And that case was very different. In that case, the owner disregarded the zoning ordinance, ignored town staff, directed his contractor to build a home that violated the height, and then tried to seek a variance after the fact when he had received a cease and desist. So wildly different than we have here. I'll also note that one of the pieces of evidence that was discussed in Morikawa was how there was no discussion of topography or wetlands or anything like that. The staff member said, you could have built this elsewhere on site. There's no reason, no justification allowing you to build a higher building. And then, of course, I'll point the board, and Mr. Chairman, this is what you were getting at earlier, Adolphson. The Adolphson decision, it's one of the first things I learned as a land use lawyer, the Adolphson exception, which is an independent basis for granting a variance is when you are reducing or eliminating a nonconformity, and you can, in exchange, if you will, increase another existing nonconformity on site as long as it's less offensive, was the phraseology. And our position here is that, again, the minute 160 square foot coverage increase within the front setback is a less offensive nonconformity than the front setbacks and the height that currently exist, and we're rectifying those. So I know I'm going a little bit out of order. I want to ask Tori to just put a slide up on the screen. Tori, can you put up slide 32 quickly for me? And this goes back to the regulations and what the regulations require as the board reviews the variance application. So again, the regulations provide that the variance should be granted if it's in harmony with the general purpose, consideration for, and this is what I'm focusing on here, conserving public health, safety, convenience, welfare, and property values, and so that substantial justice will be done and the public safety and welfare secured. Again, spoke about the intent of the regulations and the general purpose of bringing the property more into conformance. Wanted to just highlight a couple of benefits. We've heard a lot about from the neighbors of concerns of what this proposal will do to the neighborhood. And we wanted to put a couple of a list before the board of what it will improve in the neighborhood. We're improving sight lines. We're reducing driveways and curb cuts on a busier state road. Removing invasive species in the wetlands.
Counselor, do you want to try to state of responding to the points they raised? I mean, they're kind of like reiterating what you already said on a lot of these points.
Oh, yeah, this was just summary. These are my closing comments, Mr. Chairman. I'll just point the board to all of these benefits, again, as the board evaluates consideration of conserving public health and safety. Again, replacing existing substandard, et cetera, et cetera. So the board has all of these here. These are the benefits of the proposed plan as well, in addition to our legal bases. And then I did want to just touch on quickly community outreach, just in response to the neighbors. We already highlighted this a little bit, but Mr. Riccio and his wife literally went door to door to try and talk to some of the neighbors. Some neighbors, unfortunately, were unwilling to speak with the Riccios, but as I mentioned, we did receive some letters in support or some signatures in support. Those are in the record for the board's reference. And then we also submitted into the record, Mr. Is it Dunn? Dan, excuse me, I apologize. My handwriting is terrible. Mr. Dan opined that the applicant is not very experienced in this area. And we did submit 2 letters into the record, one from the Westport planner, I believe, and then one from the Director of Economic Development in Trumbull, essentially applauding Mr. Riccio and what he has done in similar situations in those towns, taking existing properties that had significant site constraints and redeveloping them and putting them to a productive use. So with that, Mr. Chairman, all in all, I'll say that the proposal checks a lot of boxes, not only in terms of the standards, right? Legal hardship, unique to this property, the Adolphson exception, but which we believe we meet without question. But with respect to land use generally, we're taking an unattractive, underutilized site, putting it to a productive use while eliminating existing nonconformities or reducing them in compliance with controlling regulations. With that, I will, unless Mr. Riccio?
I don't know if any of the members of the board got to specifically read the letter from the Westport town planner. And if you didn't, I don't know if we want to, we could put it up, bring it up, but it was very analogous to this in the sense that there was multiple units actually on multiple properties, and we had to obtain a variance, and then we sold, there was 2 separate buildings that had 2 separate units in each, and we sold those under a condominium unit structure. The property was a real eyesore for the town, and we came in there and we were able to really make a huge improvement to that area. And the town planner was nice enough to write a letter, basically laying that out. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Sarah, when do we have to render a decision?
You have 65 days after the close. Like so, you have 65 days after the close of the public hearing to vote. So you don't have to vote tonight if the board's not able to do so, but you have to close the public hearing tonight, and you can't accept any more information into the record, whether from the public or the applicant.
And we can't discuss it among ourselves after.
You can.
No, we
yeah.
can at the next meeting.
Right.
You could tonight or the next meeting. It's just the
Okay.
record is closed.
Yeah. Let me know when you're ready.
If there's nothing further,
Can I make a comment? I mean.
if they introduced something new in their position, I guess we'll provide you a moment, just a brief moment to address anything new.
Yes.
But if it's something that's already been addressed, and then they'll give them a moment just again to address what you've raised, if it's something new. But it has to be limited to something new that they raised.
It's like 1 second, it's literally. In terms of the petition and the information regarding the project is public knowledge. It's on the website. And that's the information that all of those signatures, all those people had. They were wondering where the information came and what information they had. It was all the information that was submitted by them, all their plans and drawings and designs. That's what they looked at when they signed that petition.
Okay.
We appreciate that clarification. Thank you. I assume you're all set, or do you have something to respond to that?
No, I'll only say, Mr. Chairman, again, this is with all due respect, there were some misunderstandings about what the plans, the materials actually meant with some of the neighbors who wrote in or spoke tonight. So I would just say, without our ability to kind of explain some of the confusion, like the basement versus cellar mislabel or something like that, it's difficult to put into specifics what exactly was understood by these neighbors, but in any event.
If everyone on the board,
Really quick, sorry.
just to not,
Yeah.
I mean, just to respond to what he said, we're not like real.
Exactly, that 2
rehashing it.
seconds. I think a very important part of this in talking with folks about this project is when you're talking about 3 units. If you ask somebody in the neighborhood, are you opposed to having 3 units here? I think it's very, oh yeah, they're gonna be opposed to that. But I think the information about the fact that this is a pre-existing legally non-conforming 3-family and we're not increasing the amount of units, I think that is really the important point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is everyone on the board all set? They don't want to ask the applicants for any additional information, no? Okay. I'd move that we move into business session. Chad, because we have 5 regular members, one in business session. Unfortunately, like you can't participate, but, is everyone okay with moving into business session? I won't be able to hear any new evidence then.
I'm
They'll
okay.
discuss among themselves.
Tori, could you stop sharing your screen at this time?
I briefly looked at the new stuff that was submitted today. I didn't know it was submitted last minute. I want to make sure everyone's stuff is duly considered, so I would like to vote on this not tonight. I mean, I just don't want someone not to have had the opportunity to review the entire submissions. They got it in by the deadline, so, okay. So that's my opinion on that, is that I would rather we talk about it tonight. We can talk about it at the next meeting too. And then render a decision once everyone's reviewed everything on the website. Yes, Sarah.
So, as part of, once the record is closed, you are still able to, ask questions to staff clarification. So if there's anything that you all need from myself or Stephen before you vote in September, like any questions that you may have and you want us to try to explain something, if you know what that is now, great. Otherwise, I would ask that you give us a week to 2 weeks before the hearing so we can come to the meeting prepared if you all have
And
it.
how would you like us to submit the questions to you?
Email would be great. Just copy it, just send it to myself.
Could they just
Do we
call,
have to
could
CC
they give you- could they
everyone?
just give you a call? 'Cause if we CC everyone, I
So
don't know.
just send it to me.
The email directly?
Email.
Yeah, don't be CCing everybody.
All right. I will.
Because, if you had a question for there.
I do have a question for Sarah. Would you be able to, when we meet in September, provide a little bit better explanation of the height 2.5 story, sorry, the stories calculation for us?
Yep.
Okay.
And just to be clear, so once we sign off this evening, we should not be having any conversations with one
No,
another
at the next meeting only.
until only when we're all. on
No,
the
no
record
group
together.
emails, no emails about this, nothing at the next, unless it's directly to Sarah, the next meeting. We would discuss this further because it's an open meeting.
And
I mean, a public meeting.
that's always, even if
Yeah,
the
that's what I
public
just
hearing
want-
were off.
Just wanted to
were open,
confirm. that.
yeah.
Just
So
wanted to confirm.
The speaking with staff is okay outside of the
And what
meeting?
about the town attorney?
You have to
No.
go through me. You cannot speak directly to
And
the
we-
town attorney ever, unfortunately.
And we
Yeah.
have you have the letter from our attorney Bloom and Goldman and Vermonte, the memo.
Yes.
I think it'd be
yeah.
helpful for people to review that,
And actually,
not on this, the January.
Oh, okay, the
14th
training
one.
memo, okay.
that's actually great. I
Yeah,
also,
I've looked at that, it's a good, very succinct summary.
I actually attended the CLE that was in March that Sarah told us about. And I have a copy of those written materials, which I've not had a chance
I
to
don't
make.
know if we can put it into the record for this though, so let's
So I wouldn't
Not- yeah, let's
introduce
not.
any,
not do it for this hearing because the record's closed. I mean, if you want to refer to case law or whatever, I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
case law, case law, it's public.
I've read them and I found them very helpful.
Okay, so, Does anyone want to discuss this particular points in this tonight, or do you want to wait till the next meeting? I don't know what people's preferences.
To your point, I mean, I also, like you, looked at things before. I mean, I looked at it again this morning and I hadn't seen the submission by the neighbors posted to the site as yet. I think it would be better for all of us to review the entirety of the record, just including the new material before we do any discussion, just so that we're fully informed.
I agree.
I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Just one more question. So if next month there's two other items on the agenda, do we have to go through those items first
No,
and go into business session, or can we start? with
we
our
could
business
start,
session?
if the preference is to start with this, we can. I can actually tell you now, we may have one application. We're waiting to hear if they want to withdraw or not, so we will either have one other application or no other
I
application.
mean, the preference, depending on what you would estimate the time constraints might be, it might be better to have that one first and get it over with, because I would
I think
envision
that'll be a
this.
complicated one as well.
Okay,
So
okay.
we'll start with this.
So,
Yeah, and Sarah, I just need to read again.
Of course.
Think about what council had talked about and Dan. I may come back to somehow help in what can be done on the existing. I'm just stuck on that,
Okay.
you
So
know,
I mean, I'm happy to outline like what I was kind of getting at during the public hearing, like if you were questioning what permitting would be needed if you went one
Right.
route versus the route they've chosen.
Right,
Like,
you know.
we can definitely speak to that.
Like if a variance wasn't issued, then what happens to this property and what can be done?
well, I think some of those are questions for, not for Sarah, but she's not like the health department. How would she
No.
know?
No, but I'm
no.
familiar with the permitting for all
Right,
the land use
right.
departments. Obviously, I can't speak verbatim to the health code, but I can
Okay.
provide context and,
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I
there's,
mean, one point I just want to read here in the decision. Can I do this or should we wait? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
no.
know if this you off, but before the commission approves a site plan application.
so that
But
is,
that's P and Z.
that's the Planning and Zoning Commission, that's not you all.
Right.
P and Z.
Right.
There's a different section for the Zoning Board of Appeals. You
Yeah,
should
yeah,
be
no, I-
referring to the site plan.
Is that the copy that you gave me? I think I actually
Yeah.
just tabbed something.
Yeah. Yeah.
8.30.
Do you require us, just for the rules, to have a formal motion to continue with the business discussion?
So, I mean, typically, the chair can just announce that the application is closed. Not sure if that was actually done or not at this point.
Yeah, I think I announced that, we're not hearing any more stuff about state is closed. And you're saying we don't need to continue, we don't need a motion to continue discussion on the next meeting. Okay. So if no one wants to vote on this tonight,
no,
it'll be discussed in the next meeting.
agree.
The next matter on the agenda tonight, which I've misplaced.
Here, do you need, it's just the minutes, but I'm.
Is the approval of the May minutes. Has everyone had a chance? Thank you. So, fine again. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Does anyone have any comments regarding the minutes?
No.
Someone want to make a motion in favor of them?
Curtin moves in favor or makes a motion that we accept the minutes from. May.
Snyder seconds the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any other matters before the board?
No.
And then, I'd move that to adjourn the meeting.